he drives, and then you get to see the shadow of the mothership come over like this miniature. It's one of the greatest miniatures I've ever seen of all time. And then he drives through a tunnel. And I think that tunnel, it's a shot that I never paid attention to until last night when watching this. I think that tunnel is the metaphor that he's entering and he won't be ever the same again.
Oh.
That is an important thing because I think that's definitely in the 77 and it's in the 98. So I don't know if it's in the 80 because I didn't rewatch it. But I think that is his transition point and the visual of his, because that shot holds as you see the car just go into nowhere, lighting up that tunnel. And that is Richard Dreyfuss, and we will never see him the same again.
Would you call it a birth canal?
I could potentially. I was gonna call it. I was gonna call it an Andrew metaphor for the movie. That's what I was gonna. But yes, it could definitely be a birth canal, a rebirth canal. He comes out on the other end of that, and he's a totally new person, 100%.
They don't chase clout, they just chase the lore. Dig scenes that the mainstream ignores, where light fights dark in a fabled war. Yeah, the truth gets told when the movie's born. I'm the break in the flicker, the cut in the edit, the blade through the credits, a frame they embedded. Light in the distance, persistence poetic. The dark is a prison, I brighten with aesthetic. No stunt doubles, I tumble through trap fights. The script's in my soul, I control when my track spikes. Whisper in a reel, I reveal with the black light. The dark is a canvas that I carve with the flashlight. Call it a war cry, a cinematic spark, a puzzle in the shadows, a code of the art. It's Andrew and Greg and the legacy embarks. Our voices ignite and we light up the dark.
This is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977, and theatrical release.
Correct.
Now, I do have to say that I did watch not only the 1977, but I did watch the 1998 version.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I did a little extra homework here.
Good for you.
I skipped the 80 re-release.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You didn't see inside the spaceship.
No, I saw that when I was a kid, and I was like, I saw it once, and I was like,
yeah.
And we could go into that, but maybe for later.
I think Spielberg has been pretty clear that he never wanted that, and that was a pressure from the producers or who at the studio.
And he got to reshoot some scenes because of it. So he said, okay, if I say yes to this, I'll be able to do some shots.
Now, part of that reshoot, was there an extension? Because the only scene I noticed missing when I watched the theatrical cut, because you picked the theatrical cut.
Him in the shower. You're talking about him in the shower.
Actually, no, I forgot about that. The one scene that I thought was noticeable was at the very beginning when it was just Roy with his family with the train set and they're watching TV. And I remember in the special edition or the director's cut, it's called the 98. Is it 98? That's called the director's cut.
I think it's the 98. Yeah, it's like his final definitive whatever version that he said is the one. Yeah, you're talking about the Pinocchio with the family and wanting to go to the theater. Yeah.
Yes, I remember there's a quite lengthy scene that sets up the family. And in this cut, I mean, I don't remember all the details of the various cuts, so I'm watching it last night. And by the way, I only watched the theatrical cut. I didn't go back and watch the other one. So,
but you've already seen the other ones at points in time in your life.
You can tell that there's like, yes, of course, and you can tell there's like a vague memory where I remember there being quite a lengthy introduction with the family that this cut does not get. And this cut is more plot. It's like moving forward. And I have to say, that was the only thing that I felt like I missed. When I was watching it, I thought, oh gosh, I remember there being more with the family. And I liked having more with the family.
I agree with you on this 100%.
Yeah, it's like cut to Roy and then they get a phone call and he's out the door. And it's like you barely get anything. And then the plot is going and he's off at the electrical plant and everything. And I thought, boy, it would have been nice if we had a little more character set up there. So I think this might be one of the reasons why. I agree with you
because the movie also still ends with the like Pinocchio soundtrack over the ending theme as it goes away. So there's no payoff to that thing. You know what I mean? Like the setup of that is the whole, hey, I want to go to Pinocchio. Then you've got the explanation of him wanting to go there. Then you've got the little music box and whatever. Then you have it at the ending of the movie. And there's got to be a theme there that Andrew's going to want to talk about besides the fact of just the Kubrick connection of that happens, 28 years later or something like that. There's got to be something else in there. But I do agree with you. That is the big change, and him in the shower with his kid pushing the door open, going like cry
Okay,
baby.
yes, the
That's
crybaby scene. Right.
yeah. Those are the
Okay,
two
yeah.
big difference between the 77 and the 98 or whatever cut of it.
See, and I think those two scenes do help to escalate the family tension in a way where the movie's a little bit weird, and you can get into this idea that, he does leave his family. And so at the beginning of the movie, I remember that scene with the train set and the TV's running, and his wife is like asking him questions, and the kids are, screaming, and there's just so much chaos. And I think you probably get this feeling of like the family tension where this guy's not actually very happy, with his family. I think I don't know. There's something going on there.
No, there's something going on there, and I read it as he's just another child. Like Terry Garr is
Okay.
raising all these kids, including him, and that's one of them. Right? He's a fun guy, and he seems super fun to be whatever, and he's probably like a good father. But she's picking up a lot of slack, and I think that's what that scene sets up even prior to him seeing aliens and going, "Hey, here's my new thing I'm gonna run off and do." Like it's keeping that scene in and keeping in the aspects of him in the shower falling down and all of that type of stuff does then give you the payoff that you get. Okay, this guy would be obsessed and would leave his family. That's the
Yeah.
thing that if you
Yeah.
start cutting out certain scenes, you start going, wait, you're going to leave your whole family? And I've had different viewings throughout my life. When I was a kid, I didn't give a fuck about his family. I'm like, yeah, go with the aliens. Who gives a fuck? I'm like, I'm a kid. I'm watching the movie, whatever. Like, what does family mean to me? Like having a wife and having kids, like that means nothing to me
Yeah.
when I'm 9 years old watching this. I'm like, go with the aliens, go with the aliens. And I remember Spielberg talking about, that being like, you have to earn the fact of him going away. And he's like, now that I have a wife and family, I would never do something like this and whatever the fuck. And I find that a little bit. I get his answer and I get kind of why he's saying that. And I get there is a time and place why when he made this movie where he was so obsessed with this alien thing prior to family or whatever that he's like he could see it, and that's what's in the direction of this. It's like you can see, hey, this guy is obsessed as fuck, and he's him throwing all the stuff through the window. I mean, I don't want to start talking out of order, but
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
speaking on the aspects of saying without if you cut out too much, you don't earn the yes, this guy would leave his family. And if you keep all those sections in, you do earn the yeah, I can see how this guy would just be, I'm out here, I'm going up in the spaceship, fuck my family.
Yeah, I mean, for the purposes of this conversation, I would appreciate if we just talked about the theatrical cut because that's the cut I watched and I don't
Yes,
remember the other cut. So you can add,
totally.
if you want to add any commentary about the other cut, happy to hear that.
I think the only
I
other
can't
thing that's
speak
not
to
in
it
the
though.
original, yeah, the only other thing that's not in the original that I can remember is I think the boat being in the desert.
Right, right. There's another sequence where they discover another,
Right. It's very much like the opening
large,
sequence
yeah,
of
okay.
describing the planes and all that. It's
Yeah,
just kind of
okay,
that.
okay.
But
It's
those are the only
actually very
differences.
interesting. I mean, now that you're talking about this, I kind of wish that I had watched the other cut because then we could actually talk about that. But,
Those are the only things. I mean, they're so
yeah,
close. The
okay.
77 and the 98 are literally. I'll just tell you again, just we have the differences in there. It's the opening Pinocchio. It's the boat in the desert, and it is what was the third? Why am I even forgetting right now?
Shower
Oh,
scene,
him
you
in the
said.
shower,
Yeah, the
shower.
shower
Yes,
scene, yeah.
yes. Those are the only real differences between it. So they're uh really close things. I think there are only 2 minutes difference in them. He might have done
Okay.
other subsequent really small changes that don't really mean much. We're definitely not talking about the 80s version, 1980, where they cut to like a McDonald's sign and they do some other things that we won't
That one I don't
forget about
remember
that.
at all.
That's the inside of the spaceship. That's the only one
Yeah,
that shows
okay.
the inside. Yeah. I
Yeah.
only watched that once when I was a kid, I believe. Anyway, yes, I will 100%. Let's go with the 70s,
Yeah, okay.
1977 version, which was the original that we were going to speak about no matter what.
Yeah, and if people want to hear us compare cuts, go listen to our Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut episode. The
We've done
entire
enough
episode.
comparing. We've done
Yeah.
enough comparing cuts at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I watched just the theatrical cut and I had a great viewing. We can get into that, but I had a great viewing. So, for me, that's where my interest lies, is just like the movie itself.
I got it. I think we got it out of the way. We talked about the little
Yeah,
differences.
for
We're done
sure.
now. All right. So Richard
For sure.
Dreyfuss, Terry Garr. Let me just say something about them because it's a little bit more. Let's just talk actor before we get right into the opening of the movie. I loved them in this, and I love them as a couple. And we also have them playing a married couple again in another movie that is on our list called Let It Ride. So
Oh,
they
wow.
play in the early 90s. They are shacked up again to play a married couple. And I love them in that movie. And I weirdly look at those characters very closely to these characters from this movie, except they don't have children in that movie. But he's this wild guy going out in the middle of nowhere, and she just wants stability. And I think like that will be a fun, interesting thing when we watch that movie where you go, I can see the casting of this, like the director casting this, and be like, you know what? We're doing a Close Encounters weird alternate universe sequel of these two people
Okay.
here.
I wanted to ask you a question. So this is your pick. I just wanted to know in general, why did you pick this movie?
Oh, I think this is one of the most influential movies, when I was a kid. This was right up there, I saw it before Jurassic Park, and this was one of the ones where I was in the '80s and I saw it, and I was floored by the spectacle. Like, you have to imagine back to when, like, it's like 1986, 1987. What movies were there besides Star Wars that were bringing you into outer space? Of course, there's 1968. There's Kubrick. We're not going into that. But I'm talking about as a kid thing.
Mm.
And this is the first time, and I really do. As a kid, I'll just talk through my kid eyes. The special effects and the lens flares that are happening when the spaceships are approaching in each one of them, it was the most realistic thing I'd ever seen. Blade Runner was right up there, but taken into consideration, this happened prior to Blade Runner. And when I looked at this movie and I looked at this spectacle, I was the Richard Dreyfuss character. I was sitting there going like, if I saw this and half my face is burned, like I could drop a whole family and leave and go on this fucking thing. Like I didn't have any second of consideration for anything because I'm like 7 years old and I'm just going, let me follow the aliens. Let me do this. So I was on the emotional pull of this movie, and I would just rewatch it as a kid, and it would just be little Barry going out there and being pulled, and I watched it today or last night, specifically the '98 version. Either way, same thing almost. And I was floored again as I always am when I watch it, and I'm prepared to talk about each and every scene and why in each and every scene. 'Cause
Okay.
I'm trying to psychoanalyze why I was into it as a little kid. Like, what got you into this movie? And I think so much of tone, when music is used, how it's used, acting-wise, camera movements, Spielberg puts you in a hypnotic tone throughout this film, and he does such a good job of it. And each and every scene we could talk about like, "Oh, I'm seeing what he's eventually gonna do in Raiders. I see what he's eventually going to do in Schindler." Like, there's so many things that you can see this budding filmmaker who's just throwing everything in. There's not a shot that he's just, like, phoning in, like, "Oh, whatever." Like, I just
Yeah.
noticed a sequence last night where I was like, "Oh, this is handheld. I've never noticed this previously." And
Mm.
the entire sequence is just handheld, and I was, yeah.
Which one is that?
It is the one where they're doing the press conference and the guy
Okay.
from, what's his name? The guy at the end with the shovel of Home Alone.
Oh, is that the same guy? Okay, I didn't know
I
that.
think it's him. I hope it's him.
Okay.
Because if it's not, I'm just going like,
Okay.
"Oh, you'd
Okay.
be about that age." But I think that was
Yeah.
him. Can you
Okay.
Google
Yeah.
that?
Let's see.
It's the guy who ends up holding up that sign going like, "Please be nice, smile," or whatever that little sign is that he has.
Hmm. That's really interesting, actually. Is that the same guy? That is the same guy.
It is, right? There we go. Okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, that's interesting. So I think that his casting then in Home Alone might have been a little bit of a spiritual connection. So that okay, well, that's it for another episode with
Okay,
with
wait,
Home
no,
Alone.
I kind of explore that. You can't just
Well,
leave that out there.
just in the sense that Home Alone is a kind of magical movie in its own
Okay,
way, you
yes.
know, about a kid and kind of has its own sort of awakening. I do think Home Alone in a way is a sort of about an awakening of sorts. We can get to that later, but
That's good. Do we have Home Alone on our list?
oh yeah, yeah, I picked it for this Christmas.
Oh yeah, we have it in our December
Yeah,
episodes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Christmas
okay,
time.
okay.
It's my number one Christmas pick. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
I'm excited for that.
okay, so that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I watched it last night and I had been putting it off the whole week, just, you know, busy and whatever. And, you know, I've seen the movie so many times, especially when I was younger, but I realized I hadn't seen it in a number of years. And I was a little bit like, ah, okay, I'm gonna watch this movie again. Do I really want to watch it again? I have to watch it. Okay, let me watch it.
And it
And
is your favorite Spielberg. You've said it's your favorite Spielberg. So
yeah, I
you
did say
already
that.
semi dreading watching your favorite Spielberg. I want to slap you.
Yeah, and I was really curious, like, is it still gonna be my favorite? You know, because I've changed a lot since I felt that way. It was always my favorite Spielberg, going back to when I was a teenager. And so I wondered, is it still gonna be my favorite? Because Spielberg's made a lot of movies since then, but then I've also changed a lot, and I've watched, you
But
know,
you've
Indiana
also seen
Jones, and
Jaws. You've also seen
we
Jaws
just
on this
watched, right.
podcast, which blew you the fuck away. So
That's right, yeah. And so I really wondered what I would think. And I mean, it didn't take very long. I probably got, you know, a few scenes in and I immediately started thinking, okay, this is really good. I'm like really happy I'm watching this movie.
sit down.
And
God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention.
yeah, and just by the middle of the movie, I was completely in. And, you know, but I haven't seen it in a long time, so that was a great experience watching it, like, from start to finish, you know, sit down, like a theatrical experience, and, I mean, by the time I got to the end, I tell you, I just had, like, a transcendent experience of my own, and I already in the middle of the movie, I was thinking, "Yeah, this is still my favorite Spielberg movie." Like, I can tell, like, I can just tell. I'm like, this is gonna be my favorite," and I was actually running through my mind, like, what could even compete for me that would be my favorite? I thought, "Okay, well, obviously, you have Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park," you know, I thought Schindler's List. I'm
Yeah,
like,
don't throw Schindler's List under the bus,
right.
bro.
Well, I'm thinking
We're
like,
gonna have a really good podcast episode on that one.
yeah, I'm running through, you know, Private Ryan, and I'm running through, and I'm thinking like, would any, but would I call those my favorite one? You know, the one that I love the
This
most.
is way better than Private Ryan. I like Private Ryan. This is way better than Private Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, Jurassic Park obviously has that nostalgic kid quality, and then of course Indiana Jones, I think would be high up there.
I look at them as so different levels because what this is on a film movie level to such a fucking degree. Like this guy is like has something to prove, and he was obsessed with fucking aliens at the time. He ended up doing E.T. after this. Like this is a movie he wanted to make prior to Jaws. He was so into this, like he was probably the crazy guy at you know he didn't drink, he didn't go to bars, but he'd be the crazy guy at a party. If you started talking to him, he'd bring you into the corner and just talk to you about aliens for 45 minutes. Like, that's what I get out of the way that he was into aliens at this time period.
Yeah, he made this movie right after Jaws, right? It was his very next
Yep.
movie. And I noticed so many similarities. I thought that the structure and everything, I thought it's almost like you could put the aliens instead of the shark, you know, where it's like introduced, there's like a phenomenon that's occurring, the townspeople have to deal with it, the government gets involved, they hold a press conference, right? They assign a task force to deal with it. And there's so many similar beats, and I thought that was really fascinating. But this movie is like just Jaws, you know, on a cosmic scale because it's aliens and it's, you know, the arrival of a spacecraft and it's all these special effects. And I felt like it was Jaws with a bigger budget.
Well, you know what makes total sense too, and it's a throwback to our Jaws conversation about that, is how much he changed the book because he had been writing this and doing this and having these themes of Close Encounters prior to Jaws. He had wanted to do this, I think, even before Sugarland. He had been wanting to do this, and thinking about those themes, and then thinking about okay, the book of Jaws is so much different. Did he put those elements in because those were the elements that he wanted to do? And Richard Dreyfuss, while they were doing Jaws, was going, that movie that you keep talking about, Close Encounters, I want to be in that one. It wasn't called Close Encounters at the time. It was called Look Up at the Skies or something. but he kept saying to him, "I want to be in this. I want to be in this," and he didn't want him in this. He went out to a bar for the very first time in his life with Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen drank 14 beers and he drank 3, and Spielberg doesn't drink. And he was trying to convince Steve McQueen to be in this movie. And Steve McQueen goes, "There's a scene where somebody cries in this movie." And he goes, "I can't cry. I've never cried in movies. That's not going to work for me."
That's
And then
awesome.
Steven goes, "I'll cut the scene. Just be in my movie." And he goes, "No, no, the scene is needed. You need to have that scene.
Oh wow.
I'm not going to be in your movie." And he went through like 10 other actors, and Dreyfuss is still sitting there going, "Hey, everyone who turned out this movie, including Dustin Hoffman, like, I want to be in this movie." And he convinced him by specifically saying to him, at least this is the rumor of what I've heard, he convinced him by specifically saying to him, "This character needs to be a child, but also an adult at the same time." And he's like, "I can pull that off for you."
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And he ended up doing it for him.
I wondered if he actually was influenced by the script of Jaws for this script, but you're saying he actually wrote it before.
He wrote it before.
So those two, I think, have a definite connection. And then, of course, the Richard Dreyfuss connection only makes it
I'll
even
correct what
further.
I'm saying. He had the idea and he was writing and he wrote it with 3 different writers, and they were putting more elements of other things into it and this and that, but he didn't they didn't finalize the script till after Jaws. But he had this idea and wanted to do this, and they even had, like, an op for it where it was going to kinda be happening, very low budget, and he even thought about doing it documentary style and cutting out all the special effects in the early '70s of going like, "Should we do this almost mockumentary, documentary type feel?" Like, he wanted to get this movie made.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah, I think that it's my favorite Spielberg movie for a few reasons. And I mean, the ending has a huge part in that. And we can, of course, get to that point. But just what we're talking about here, one of the reasons why it's my favorite is because I just love the structure. And I think he had this structure in mind for a story that he maybe grafted onto Jaws. But the structure is just like this steady escalation. I don't see it as a story that has huge turning points. There aren't twists and turns. It's just a steady escalation. It's a movie that's going in one direction in a straight line, and it just continues to go up and up and up and up and up. And I've always loved that about it. I actually think that what you said about this one being more of like a film, he has Jurassic Park, he has Raiders. These are like roller coaster rides, and they're, of course, incredible movies. But this movie has this artistry to it. There's just like, it's like, to me, it almost feels more like an art film, where it's a little bit unconventional, actually. And yet Spielberg brings his entertainment sensibility to it. And I think the quality of those two things together, this kind of unusual structure, and then his sense of storytelling, and then, of course, the subject matter, just
And there's care in every shot.
yeah, it just has such a special quality. Yeah.
Like, every shot you're watching.
Yeah, the cinematography. I was, thinking that last night watching it. Like, I don't think there's another Spielberg movie that quite looks like this. Just the beauty of those images, just these perfect frames, just out in, Wyoming, and out in the landscape and the stars, like the Barry's house with the mom and just the stars in the sky, and of course then the lights of the spacecrafts, and I was just marveling at the cinematography. Just, yeah, one of the most gorgeous movies I think ever filmed.
Ever. And all of those
Yeah.
shots, like the Barry's mom, the wide shot of the house. So each one of the shots that they wanted to do where they had to have a special effect, like putting in the sky and the clouds coming over or aliens coming in and spaceships and all that stuff. They shot each one of those on 65 millimeter because they needed to go,
Okay.
okay, every special effect shot that you see, and this is the first one, even before, Back to the Future Part 2, where they're doing motion control camera movements and stuff. This is the very first one. Like when you see Truffaut walk out there at the end, and it's a panning shot that's moving with him, and then it pans over, and then you get to see the 3 alien spaceships that are sitting there at the end of the movie. That's the first motion control shot that was ever done, and it's in
Yeah.
1977.
Yeah.
And they're shooting that on 65 because they had to go, all right, here's the first plate. Now we're going to shoot the miniature plate and get that on top of there. And we don't want it to degrade and have a bunch of, if you shoot on 35 and you have to do 35, then on top of 35, it ends up looking like 16 at the end. So they went with
Right.
65 and they did, they made these effects look so good that you don't question them. And as a kid, I was sitting there going, I'm watching this, 10 years after the movie came out, and I'm still watching on the little VHS tapes, but I'm sitting there going like, why did no other special effects look like this? Because at the time, you hadn't seen um, Star Wars when it's remastered. You watch the original Star Wars on VHS, and that does not look as good at this at all. Like this, the care and attention to detail that went into this, and I love his story of saying he went to LAX airport and he would watch the planes flying in, and he would look at them, and he would see that glow that was happening around them as all the planes were landing, and he was going, "I need to capture that." And like this just reminds me of like a young filmmaker going, I need to see this. I need to get this here. He brought the entire effects crew and he told them, go watch the planes landing. He goes, I want to get that in my movie. I need that look. We need to have this. And they did that so well. And it's before like they had, oh, just put it in digital and we can motion blur it later. Before like Go Motion or anything else they were trying to do, with Jurassic Park when it was going to be stop motion, the care and attention to detail of making it look like that was not just like, okay, have things fly by, whatever, just have it go. And this was, I mean, they're doing production in 76 going into 77. He was originally going to have more time to be able to edit the movie all the way till 78, but the studio was having problems and they go, you got to release this in 77. So they literally, for whatever reason, they had an entire year of post production that they were going to do, and they jam packed him into release this quick. We need to get this thing out, which is kind of
Okay.
another throwback to potentially the Lester conversation. We won't go into that, but it might have been that might be why he felt like he needed to do his 1980 version of it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember hearing an interview with him speaking to the special effects, where, obviously there's a 2001: A Space Odyssey influence, as there have been in so many other filmmakers' work. But the technology wasn't at a point where you could move the camera in 1968 and have special effects integrated into moving shots. And I remember there's an interview where Spielberg gave where he said the technology had advanced to the point where the special effects guy, who was that Douglas Trumbull?
I think it might have been.
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah. Which same guy who did 2001. Douglas Trumbull, I'm pretty sure. And so Spielberg was told, yeah, you can like pan the camera and now we can have the spacecraft, move through. And Spielberg's like, wait, I can do that? And it was like,
It's revolutionary. It was
yeah,
revolutionary.
game changer.
I remember being a kid just watching it, just going, "This is different. Like this is vastly different." You have human beings walking around, and now we see spacecraft here, and the camera's moving. You just knew this is different. And
Yeah.
that was a big thing, and that's one of the big things that he said, in Jurassic Park, just to throw that back there, he goes, "I wanna be able to, use a Steadicam. I wanna be able to go handheld and have these people move around and have this go." And when it got to the digital age, it was, yeah, you can pretty much go buck wild right now.
Yeah. And I mean, it still holds up. 50 years later, I'm watching the movie and I wasn't thinking about it at all. I'm just blown away. I'm just like, God, the shots are gorgeous.
I didn't even think it was 50 years. That's freaking
Yeah.
crazy. You're right.
Yeah. Coming up on it. And it's just so cinematic. I'll throw in one quick thing and then we can transition into the movie.
Into the opening of the film.
Yeah, into the actual, like, the movie. But Hazel, was she wanted to watch Arrival. We were watching this movie, and she goes, "I want to watch Arrival," because she likes newer movies. So, and I said to her, "Yeah, okay, we'll watch Arrival soon. Maybe whatever, tomorrow, next week, whatever." So we finished this movie, and she immediately turns on Arrival. And I didn't want to watch it because I had just watched Close Encounters, and I want to stay in the mindset of watching Close Encounters.
You wanna stay in the mode, the feeling. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. I want to just save that feel. Oh my God, dude, we'll get there. But just at the end, man, just
Yeah, forget about
I want to talk about that. But anyway,
it.
but anyway, so she immediately turns on Arrival, and Arrival is a great movie in its own right. Okay, nothing against Arrival, but that being said,
Different film. Different film, different tone. Yeah.
completely different film. But I just was watching the first, few minutes of Arrival and just thinking, wow, this makes me appreciate Close Encounters even more, because just it's like pure cinema. It's just so cinematic. And speaking to how it holds up, just the way he moves the camera. I mean, I know people have said this, but it's like I got done with the movie and I just thought, What a special movie. I mean, this movie's on another level. And I know we've watched some great movies already. I mean, we've done like 10 movies or so far. Being there for me was kind of a revelatory experience in its own way. Incredible Shrinking Man, same thing. We've watched a lot of movies that actually have this kind of transcendent, like sort of spiritual ending that, speaks to some kind of larger, purpose in the universe. And we've watched movies like that, but just this movie, just something so special about this movie. And I got done with it. It's like, it is the kind of movie where at the end I watched the whole credits. I just
Oh
sat
yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
you just sit there in like a state of awe. And it's just like just feel the feel, just let that feeling continue through the whole credits.
Yeah, you don't want it to stop.
Yeah. So holds up like unbelievable.
I'm 100% in agreement with you on that. And I think we can actually transition well into the opening of this movie because I noticed something this time watching it that I'd never kind of noticed before, and it's how good he is at taking what should be a very boring scene and making it fucking riveting. The opening scene of this is basically just people come out and they discover, hey, here's old planes sitting in the middle of a fucking desert. And then people go, oh, wow, these old planes are here. Now, that on the page is not that exciting. It might be intriguing or interesting, but he puts you in a sandstorm that heightens that sequence where everyone is screaming and yelling at each other and running around and we can't see and what the fuck is going on. He brings such an atmosphere to the opening of that and such movement, and you're being introduced to characters and being introduced to everything that's going on as it's happening. That if you just had this happen on a calm day, in the middle of a desert, this would be the most boring sequence ever. They just walk out there gently and they'd all go, "Look at that. Look at these planes. Oh wow, these planes are pretty old and oh, they're here. Interesting." But this sandstorm brings such a beauty to it, and then the chaos where every character has to scream the entire time. That there's this heightened feel throughout that. And it struck me this time.
Always conflict, right? Always conflict, always like
Always.
something making it difficult. We're trying to figure this out. We're trying to get to somewhere, but there's difficulty. There's something pushing against us. There's always something pushing against you. That's why I think I said like this straight line structure. It works because there's always something pushing back.
It's Spielberg looking at every scene going, "How do we heighten this scene and make it better?" Okay,
Yeah.
let's have a fucking twister going on during the opening scene of our fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, that'll make this scene more interesting.
So they're screaming, and you got the sand and the wind, and then they speak two different languages. So do you speak French? Can you understand what I'm saying? Right? And it's the struggle of like the translation and trying to figure these things out. Yeah, it's amazing.
And then that's another subtext that comes back later because the whole thing is about translating in language when it comes to another
Yes.
being coming back to you. So
Yes.
we can get to
Yes.
that. But what does he cut to after that sequence? After that great opening sequence, he then cuts to the air traffic control sequence.
Right
No
away.
music.
Sorry, could I squeeze something in?
Yeah, go for it.
Speaking to what you're saying about him making a boring scene entertaining and being able to essentially almost do something with nothing, just the credits and the opening intro, the cut in on the movie, I love because it's just the music rising, right? The music just rises. It's like a black screen. The music rises, and then it goes dun, and it cuts in on the white.
It's a very 2001. Does it have a 2001 feel to you with the rise and then in, or
I don't know if I was actually thinking that, but just I mean, and I turned to Hazel. I said, I've always loved that intro.
that's so good.
Just something so simple like that where you can just build that anticipation like you're about to see something special, like you're about to see something that's going to be amazing. You don't know what it is yet, but boom, we cut in and it's like this white frame and you're in the middle of the desert and the movie's going to go and you already have this sense of anticipation.
I like it. You don't want to make the 2001 connection. I like it though. I like it.
You're talking about like with the opening credits, so
With the
like
opening and the
da
rise.
da da da. You're talking about
Well, no,
the
it has the like the preamble to that is like a 2 minute rise of just that sound.
oh, okay. You're talking about the overture.
The overture. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. You're talking about the overture. It is almost like a mini overture. Yeah, in this movie. Yeah. Okay.
Well, then he goes from chaos into just what should be another of the most boring scenes in the world. Because there's
Right.
no intercutting here. If you shot this movie now, they'd be like, you have to keep intercutting to the pilots, and the pilots are out there, and oh my god, what's that thing they see? Then
Right.
back to here. He keeps you with the air traffic controllers. There's no music, and you're just sitting there and you're listening to analog actual recordings of people. Like, they recorded it through, the radios. Like, it's not like, oh, just put the filter on later, make it sound like that. Like, you hear the air traffic controllers and it sounds so good. And the tension that he builds within that sequence, and you have the greens and the yellows, and everyone's gathering around, and we're looking at this little screen, and you're seeing the reflections on the screen.
Yeah.
That should be, by a bad director, that is the most boring scene that you could ever make. And that scene is so goddamn riveting. And each one of the actors and the way that they're placed is like Orson Welles' placement within the shots on there. And the
Yeah.
acting is fucking phenomenal. Like, that scene,
Yeah.
that is the scene that draws me into the tension of the movie. The opening scene, I like it a lot. As a kid, for some reason, even though it's in a sandstorm, after watching it the first time, I was always kind of bored at that scene. I was always just like, okay, they're moving around. I watched it now and I was just like, oh yeah, I get it. This scene's fucking phenomenal. But as a kid, even watching that scene when the music drops out and you go, we're just with these people and this tension is building and there's no music to guide you through it. And that's what was really hitting me, as when he used music and when him and Williams came in with music during this movie, especially during the opening, it was hitting me this time going, the scenes that are most effective, he just pulls the rug out from under you and he goes, I'm not going to guide you on this. I'm just going to have you watch the tension build and I'm not going to use music. He does it a lot later, which is totally fine. But at the beginning, he's letting you guide yourself into like, oh, I kind of feel uncomfortable. Why do I feel uncomfortable? Oh, we're not having music tell you what to feel right now.
Yeah. I thought the exact same thing as you. I thought the actors are playing it perfectly. They're not overplaying it. They're just like completely real, you know? And then I noticed the sound of the voice on the other end, the performance of that recording, whoever did that performance on the other end of just like, I have something to say, right? And it's like just feels so real. And one thing I thought about actually afterwards is how it opens with that scene and you don't see any of it. It's all over audio. So it's, we have an unidentified flying object here, and they're saying, what are you seeing? So you're experiencing it from the guy on the other side where you don't see any of it. You're just hearing the audio. And they say, it's at, 50 meters, 20 meters. And then they're like, it's approaching. And that's like, yeah, it just went by, and we don't know what it is. And they're like, do you want to report an unidentified flying object? And they say, we wouldn't even know what to report, and so
Wouldn't even know. Yeah.
again, it's that Spielberg Jaws technique of he's making you imagine it.
Very true. Very true.
He's making you now want to
Yes.
know. You're picturing it in your mind. What did they see? I want to know.
That's the best connection. That you're 100% right there. And he might have learned that specifically from Jaws of going, "Oh, I can't show the shark." And that really worked out well. I'm not going to show this during the opening of my movie.
So the movie is like, it's like steadily he shows you more and more and more and more and more over the course of the whole film. And he starts off showing you nothing, only giving you the audio of it. I thought that was brilliant.
It's brilliant. And in that same sequence, he's got one shot with four of them at least in it, and they're all talking over each other. And it's a super Altman type thing that's going on right there. And it's a super like
Yeah.
70s filmmaker being like, you could pay attention to what you want to pay attention to. I'm going to have each one of these people, one speaking into, the little mic he's talking, another guy's talking to another guy, another guy's talking to another, and you have four people at one point speaking, and you're sitting there going like, I'm just
Yeah.
watching this in a shot that has all four of these people. I can concentrate on what I want to concentrate on, but you feel the chaos. It's so well done.
That one frame where the camera pulls back and it's just all the guys' faces in a row,
Oh, it's
That's
fucking
yeah.
gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
fucking gorgeous. That's fucking gorgeous. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's when you go like, all right, this is filmmaking. And I think that's what we're both responding to when we watch that, because you rarely get to see that now.
That's what I'm saying. I just kept thinking cinematic. I just kept thinking this is so cinematic. Yeah, it's another level. I mean, we live in an era now of the streaming television show where there's a blending between movies and TV, where there's almost no difference now. And
Right.
you go back to a movie like this, and it's just like it just blew me away. Yeah, I just thought like, gosh, I just miss this type of filmmaking.
So that transitions almost into the next scene where I kind of want to talk about
Okay.
this and Sky. We then go
Oh.
to the little boy Barry. And
Oh
there
yeah.
were sequences in there, even though it's shot at nighttime. I was looking at this going, it is Andrew's favorite movie. And the little boy in his room, I was going, this is very Sky to me within him. They cut to like the little monkey, and I was like, is the little monkey Superman? I was like, what is buried in Andrew's subconscious where maybe this was his favorite Spielberg, and maybe there's just an aspect to this and this little curious boy, entering a different world.
Oh,
So
that's
I
good. It's
just wanted
Curious
to
George. Is that it? Aha.
the monkey could be Curious George. Yeah, I didn't think of
Okay.
that. I didn't think of
Okay.
that. Yeah, yeah.
It's like a curious reference about someone who's curious. And did you notice the little song that was playing? Did you notice the lyrics?
There's so many different songs that play, and he has
Yeah,
televisions and backgrounds going on. That
that's
specific one, I
right.
might have to meditate on and think about.
Well, because we just did Being There. We just did Being There, where the entire movie is like a coordination between what's on
Television,
television and then the
yes.
story is happening in the scene. And the little song that's playing right at the beginning in the kid's bedroom says,
I remember going like, "What do you want? Ding bang dung," something like that.
yes, and if you look, you'll find it. It's a song about looking and finding something.
Ah, oh, okay. Yeah, he's doing many times in there, and it happens with Richard Dreyfuss later, but he's doing many times on there the subtextual levels of what's being said in the background by music and or the television is saying the inner monologue of the character or a thing like that throughout it. Yeah.
In a big, big, big way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Later, Ten Commandments is on television, and there's at least one moment where the guy looks up at the spaceship. He's like, "Oh God," and it's like
Yes, yes.
the connection between God and religion and spirituality, and then the aliens definitely is a subtext, at least, that's in there.
Yeah, and it reminded me in that same sequence, the refrigerator and the food. I started seeing so many things that he was doing as if you look back at our short films and then you see stuff you did later. I was just like, there's ET aspects to already what's going on here with like the food in the refrigerator when the kid's walking on, the Pepsi can is open and things are there. Later on, ET drops, Budweiser and like there's just like alien food fridge. It's nothing like deeply in there, but you can just see him. I'm assuming in 1982, was it? 82 was ET, right?
Yeah.
Him going like, okay, I feel like a kind of aspects of what I'm doing 5 years earlier. Like I'm still on my thing. There's
Yeah.
nothing more deeply to go into in that, but besides the fact that I was just going, oh, I see some parallels.
Just that he has such a singular tone and style and vision, and obviously that has been so influential over film history that so many other directors have adopted that or, integrated it into their own style, and in some cases just flat out, stolen it. But just I was just thinking how influential this movie is. And we talked about that in our Jaws episode about the opening scene with the sheriff and his family, just how real it feels, and just those domestic Spielberg scenes just have such an atmosphere. It's almost even hard to explain, but they just have such an atmosphere, and it's like he's captured something. I don't even know what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
just something. And yeah, and Barry. I mean, it's a yeah. I don't know. I could just go on and on. I mean, I love the movie. I love the movie so much. I really was actually thinking this might rival Superman for me. Just because every shot, I mean, it was almost a movie where I just felt like, not necessarily every single shot, but almost every scene has like the one great shot in that scene. It's like there's just so
Yes.
many great shots and great moments, and just it's almost like too many to even hold in your mind.
Yeah, and I'll skip over the part that we wanted to talk about, which is the scene that you were kind of missing, which was the Pinocchio scene and him kind of talking about that. But there's something
Yeah,
so
which I did
funny.
really miss. I like that because I think Pinocchio is something that should be in this movie for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And there's something really funny because a lot of that scene is done, like, in a wide 235 shot, and the younger kid is in the background just taking a doll and just bashing it over and over and over, and it's
Okay.
like, we don't need to do another podcast, but, rewatch that sequence just for your own glorification of how perfect that works within the movie, which he did end up putting back in the '98 cut.
Right. Now, is that a scene that he filmed at the time? And that wasn't a reshoot, right? That was a scene that he had cut down.
Exactly. That specific one was one that he cut down. Him in the shower, they reshot for 80 for that release. But
That's a reshoot. Okay.
but the original one they had left out there is my understanding of that.
Okay.
That was an
Yeah.
original shoot.
I thought that the flow of the movie was really strong. So, when it does cut to the family and there is I mean, it's very brief. You do get a little family intro, but it's
Mhm.
much, much shorter.
Mhm.
And they quickly get the phone call, and his wife's on the phone, Ronnie, and then he's out the door pretty quickly. So you get this brief little family intro. They do have the Ten Commandments playing
They
on the
don't
TV.
get to set up how much of a child he is and how much she is taking care of all those
Right.
kids, and that's what that scene
Right.
really showcases from right there. Like, it does that really well.
I wonder why he cut that out for the theatrical initially.
I think he was probably just trying to get it down.
That's interesting. Maybe just the pacing, because I
Yeah,
did I did think the pacing was good. I mean, I will say that by the time I got to the middle of the movie, I wasn't thinking about that family intro, because you do get a lot of family scenes throughout the rest of the film.
it's true.
I was just thinking, like, when you first cut to that family, I do like when movies have like a nice intro of something, and it's a real setup, and you get a strong impression. So I was just surprised. I was like, oh wow, he barely even cut to the family, and here's our
Right.
main character. You're cutting around, you're in the desert with, certain characters, then you're in an air traffic control center with other characters, then you're in a guy's house, and he's the guy who gets called to check on the electrical grid, and I'm like, it's almost like, who's even the main character of this movie?
Right. You don't actually know if you've kind of cut that scene out because that scene does slow down the pace to let you know,
It
hey,
does.
here's Richard Dreyfuss. We're gonna be with him on this movie. Get used to it. And here's his family, and here's the dynamic that they have. And it's important to kind of show the dynamic that they have prior to the chaos of the aliens entering in and taking over his life and his mind. Like, it is important. I think that's why he ended up, putting it back in the '98 cut, because that is something that is missing. If
Yeah,
you look at it from that perspective of going, why is this guy leaving? If you have some of those questions to it, it still works without it. The original '77 cut works without it, and the pacing works great.
it does. Yeah. It still works. And, it's also the kind of thing where when you first make a movie like this, you want people to like it. You're trying to
Right.
win the audience over. You don't want to
I
have a
get it.
lengthy
I get
scene.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in 1998, Spielberg's a legend. Everybody loves Close Encounters, and he can say, okay, you know what? Here's a longer scene. You already like the movie. Now I could show you more. And I know you're not going to get bored, and you're not going to, tell your friends, don't go see this movie in the theater because it was boring at the beginning or whatever. So there's a lot of pressure on films like that, when they first come out.
And the interesting thing within that scene, I don't know if there's like a full connection here, but the interesting thing within that scene is he's playing with train tracks as well. He's showcasing his son train tracks. Now, the scene that he gets to right
Ah,
after that is he's on the train tracks and the bing, 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 bing thing
uh-huh.
moving back and forth. Like, there's a connection there.
And later, little Barry says, toys, toys.
Oh, I have a whole story. I have a whole story when we get to that.
When he sees, so that's an interesting connection. Yeah, by
Yes.
the time you get to the actually, it was actually, I was gonna say, by the time you get to the scene of the train tracks, then I felt comfortable, like, okay, I know that Roy is our
This
main
is my
character.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with it. But actually, it happened even before that. It was the scene at the electrical center where it was like Roy's job, and he has to, go there and talk about what's going on, and he gets told, you got to go drive over to this place and check on it. And I think by that point I'm like, okay, I see. We're not with his family as much, but we are with
Right.
him. We're with him at his job. We see a little of the family, you see a little bit of the job, and now he's off driving in the middle of nowhere, and you're completely with him.
And the weird part, I might be misremembering this, but I think that he ended up cutting out in the
Right.
98.
Right. Probably to make up for the, you know, the time.
Make up for the other one.
Yeah.
And that's why like
Yeah.
the length of the movies are very similar because I think certain things that he decided to cut were not in there. But yeah, that's right. That version is more showcasing the fact of not showing you the family connection. So maybe it makes it easier for the transition of going, he's not that connected, or we're not feeling the connection with the family. So it makes the ending a little bit easier for him to be leaving, as maybe the thought process that he was thinking about. Because it's interesting seeing this is the only time Spielberg has ever had 3 cuts of a movie ever. Like, this
Mm.
is also the only movie he's ever had sole writing credit on. Like,
Right.
this was his friggin' movie.
Right.
And he got the 1977 version. He put it out there. He's like, I didn't feel like I got it right. Okay. Studio's saying I
Mm.
could reshoot scenes, but I got to give him this other ending. Okay, I'll do it. And then that's why he comes back, 20 years later and goes, okay, now here's my final version of the movie.
Mm.
It's interesting. Like he was doing Lucas before Lucas, and then he ended up doing it with E.T. And then after that, he said, "I'll never do this again." When he
Yeah.
painted out the guns and put in flashlights and did whatever, and then that was his
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, don't fuck with movie history, just let it go.
That's really interesting that this is Spielberg as a writer director.
Yes,
You know, this is like a very personal movie for him.
huge.
You know, maybe his most personal, one of his most personal, right? Especially at the time. This was like a very personal expression of his. And I was actually thinking that while watching it, I was thinking, I feel like every one of these characters is Spielberg. It's like a version of him. You know, Francois Truffaut is like a version of Spielberg. The cartographer is a version of Spielberg. The little boy Barry is probably Spielberg as a kid. Roy clearly is like Spielberg, but also maybe a little bit of Spielberg's dad as well. I thought there was like, you know, the family element, and it's interesting how a lot of what we're talking about between the cuts is him playing with how much of the family do we have in there. You know,
Right.
how much does that relate to the story and how much tension and how much of the crying? And, you know, weren't Spielberg's parents divorced?
Yeah, that's been a big thing. That whole Fablemans thing was very close to home.
Okay. I didn't see the Fablemans actually.
We're gonna have to remedy that.
Yeah. So,
That's
but
going
I,
on the list.
yeah, so it's fascinating because you don't usually think of Spielberg as a writer director, you know,
Right.
but this is very much like
100%. Yeah.
he created the story, right? He wrote the story from scratch. It's his story. It's very interesting.
And the first time to go into the next scene, the first time that we actually, see the aliens, I think that setup and that scene is its own perfect short film. He's sitting there, he's looking at the map, he pulls it down, we see a car come up behind him, and we already have tension just being built because there's no John Williams music in that entire sequence. And what I loved about this was he learned from Jaws. He said with John Williams, I never want to tip them off and do the dun dun if the shark is not actually there. So that whole scene where the kids come out wearing the fake fin, there's no music in that whole Jaws sequence. So he learned don't tip them off when it's there. Now, what he does interestingly in this sequence is he doesn't even use it when they are there. He has a car pull up behind him. You get to see that guy come around, it pans over, and then that guy's going, fuck you, motherfucker, blah, 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 whatever. And he's, hey, turkey, whatever he says, comes back to him. We're just having a moment. And the tension is being built, but without music. And that not having music makes you go, I'm not feeling held right now. What's going on? I'm paying attention more. What's happening? And then the next lights come up, and then they just start to raise up. And then it cuts away from that. And you're sitting there going, oh my God. But there's no cue to, dun dun. He lets you live in that moment. And then you just have the shoo, shoo, look out the window. Half his face gets burned. What's going on? Everything is floating in my car right now, which they had to put him on a giant rig where they flip the car over and over and over and over to have the fucking shit move everywhere. And then still to this day, when I was watching it yesterday, the train track sign going back and forth. I don't know if that's a miniature or not, but that is one of the most interesting visuals I've ever seen. It's
Yeah.
how did you get that thing, if it is real life big, how did you get it to move that fast? And if it is a miniature, it looks like one of the best miniatures ever.
Yeah. one of the best scenes in the movie for sure. And you know, it's the real intro of the aliens, you know, the spacecraft. And yeah, just incredible. I mean, that shot, you know, one of my favorite shots in the movie, the lights just rising up, you know, in the rear view. Um, yeah, just an incredible, again, going back to that word cinematic, you know, just an incredible cinematic idea, you know, and the setup, of course, of the first car, right? Go by, and then that second car, not a car.
It makes me so upset because now I know they'd cut to a wide shot that shows a spaceship floating over the car so the audience knows exactly what's going on at every moment because you can't confuse anyone. You have to keep them into every moment. This is an artist knowing exactly how to keep an audience's attention perfectly. And it's so done so well. It's like somebody who looks at great poetry from 300 years ago and goes, "Wow, I see what that person was seeing. I see the prose that they're going for and all
Mm,
this shit."
it is.
Like, you watch a movie like this, and the shots and everything and the tone just flows over you, and you go, "Oh my god, this is an artist who's going,
Yeah.
I care about every fucking frame," and
This
it's
is
such
gonna
a
be a
breath
love
of fresh
fest.
air. It
Yeah,
is a love fest.
this is gonna be a love fest.
Spielberg is fucking
Yeah.
this is when he just put like, whenever somebody looks at, like, some, documentary of him talking in, 2016 or saying whatever, and I'm like, "Okay, he looks like he's saying this or that," whatever, it's like, "Dude, do you see what this guy has done? Do you understand? This is, like, the god of filmmaking." Like, he's so fucking good.
Yeah, this one for me in particular. Again, I mean, I wasn't like this on Jaws, you know, and I think if we eventually talk about Indiana Jones, I always loved Indiana Jones, but just not like this. Like to me, this is just another level. It's just there's just something special here.
No, because this is he's able to do things on different levels. This is a something that is so heartfelt for him, and Indiana Jones is fucking fantastic, but it's not supposed to be this. That's him doing the Buck Rogers shit. That's him going, I just want to have fun and I want to do cool shit. And he's able to still do his style and do that. But this is like such a personal thing that he's like, at the time he believed I'm screaming to the world, "Hey, there are aliens, and this is my way." He got a letter from NASA, 20-page letter saying, "You releasing this movie and going in this direction, putting out this movie is going to be bad for the human race." And he looked at this 20-page letter from NASA and he
That's
goes, "If a
great.
government organization is sending me this, I'm on the right track." Like,
That's
he was a
great.
rebel when he was doing this. Imagine getting a letter from NASA when you're making something. It's a little scary. And he
Wow,
just
I
looks
didn't
at
know
that
that.
and yeah, he wipes his ass with it and he goes, "I'm on the right track. I'm going." Like, he's a crazy fucking filmmaker going, "I'm saying something that needs to be said. This means something." That's what
Right.
he's
Right.
doing that with his movie.
I don't know what it is, but this means something. This is important.
This is important. Yeah, and that
Yeah.
line gets repeated fucking twice in the
Yeah.
fucking movie. This means something. This is important.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I'm skipping ahead. I thought it was great later how you know, he shows you, oh yeah, the government just lies to you. You know, they knock out all the animals, you know, with like a sleeping dust.
Yeah,
And then they tell everybody it's poison gas and it's like, you know, complete lie.
yeah.
And it's right in there. It's right in the movie. You know, he's just telling you.
He was a rebellious guy, and now you look at him as being like, okay, somebody could say like, "Oh, he's much more, he's a bit older and he's this and that, and he seems like he might fly by, understanding things nowadays or whatnot." But this is his young kid, rebellious version of him. He didn't go out and get drunk and do crazy shit or this and that. But within the course of his movie, he said, "The government's lying to you. There are aliens. Pay attention. This is what's going on." Like, this is his version of being rebellious, and that's what's really cool
Hmm.
about it.
That might be why I love it so much. It does have that. You're right. It does have this quality of like, I have something to prove. Like, I have something to say and something to prove. And you combine those two things together and you get a revolutionary
You get a
masterpiece of
fucking
a movie.
masterpiece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, the one shot when he leaves, just because I don't wanna leave the train sequence yet, because this is an important one. He drives, and then you get to see the shadow of the mothership come over, like, this miniature. It's one of the greatest miniatures I've ever seen of all time, and then he drives through a tunnel, and I think that tunnel it's a shot that I never paid attention to until last night when watching this. I think that tunnel is the metaphor that he's entering, and he won't be ever the same again.
Oh.
That is an important thing, because I think that's definitely in the 77 and it's in the
Hmm.
98. So I don't know if it's in the 80 because
Interesting.
I didn't rewatch it,
Interesting.
but I think that is his transition point, and the visual of his, because that shot holds as you see the car just
Yes.
go into
Yes.
nowhere, lighting up that tunnel, and that is Richard Dreyfuss, and we will never see him the same again.
Interesting. Would you call it a birth canal?
I could potentially. I was gonna call it. I was
Ah,
gonna call it. I was gonna call it an Andrew metaphor for the movie. That's what I was gonna. But yes, it could
yes.
definitely be a birth canal, a rebirth canal. He comes out on the other
Mm.
end of that, and he's a totally new person, 100%.
And you know what's interesting about that is there's a line later where they say happy birthday. Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah. I think it's on the television again.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's like being reborn. Something like this happens to you, and it is like being reborn. And you see, because you see everything different, because nothing is the same anymore, right? It's like every single thing you've ever known that you thought was real, you've now recontextualized, and you are a different person. Like he has a different personality. We don't get to see him before this movie. We get a little glimpse, but we don't get to spend a lot of time with him, so we don't know. But I can imagine he was completely different. He's probably just an ordinary guy. He goes to
Yeah,
work, does his job, he goes home, he watches TV, and
bothers his wife. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and life is pretty simple. And now just, completely different person. So that's really fascinating. I love that. I love that you picked up on that. I think that's definitely true. I think that's in there for sure. See, this is what I love about movies like this. It's just
and there's so many levels.
the
Yeah,
layers, man.
man. Hey, man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, we see him. He almost hits Barry. He gets to meet up with what's her name, Melinda Dillon.
Yeah.
Now interesting connection between the thing that we did last. Hal Ashby was the one who had filmed Bound for Glory and said to Spielberg, Spielberg had like 2 days left to cast this actress because he hadn't found the right actress. Hal Ashby gave him a call and said, "Hey, you should check out this actress I just worked with in Bound for Glory," which is Melinda Dillon, who's playing Barry's mom. And Spielberg goes, "Okay, I'll take a look at that." So just interesting connection there. Funny part is she didn't want the role, and the funny part about Terry Garr is when she'd only been in like TV commercials and she'd been in a few other things, but she was doing a lot of TV at the time. She also didn't want the role. Terry Garr actually said, hey, yeah, I don't want to play that role. I want to play the Melinda Dillon character, the mother of Barry.
Okay.
I want to play that
Yeah.
role." And then during that same meeting, she was convincing Spielberg at the end of that. She has this on an interview of her going, "You know what? I think I could play both roles." And she was laughing at herself, going, "How cocky was I to be trying to talk Spielberg like nowadays? Try to talk him
Yeah,
into going
right.
like, you know what? I don't want that role. I want this role. Actually, I want both roles." Like
Yeah.
that's so funny that neither one of them either wanted to have these roles, and they're fantastic in
Yeah.
them,
Yeah, she's
and they have no
great.
regrets now.
So Spielberg famously said later that he wouldn't make the movie the same now, of course, that Roy leaves his family. The movie really sets up almost like this alternate love interest, that you have a character who has a family, he's married, he has his wife, and when he pulls his wife out to the road, she says, "I'm taking this so well, aren't I?" Right? And then she says,
Right,
"We used to come to places like this just to look at each other." And so
right.
you get this kind of sadness of like this is a relationship that has kind of faded over time.
And he looks off into the sky as they're kissing. He looks off away.
Right, and he's not, yeah, he's
Yeah.
not there. And then you have this other woman who's a single mother, no father in the picture, she's available, right? And the movie very much pushes that as almost like Roy should be with this woman. And what do you make of that?
Well, what I make of that is I think that there's trying to have some sort of alien connection of going, you need to be with this person only to get to the Devil's Tower. You have a pull with this person to get to this location, because once he gets to that location, they don't have a big love story interest thing within them. Their thing is just,
Right.
we need to get to point Z. That's where we need to go, and that's where we're gonna get. And once they get there, he looks at her and he's, "Oh, are you coming?" She's like, "No, Barry's not here. I don't feel good." And she's like, "Go. I know. Like, it's fine." Like, there's nothing between them besides the connection of this alien thing and her son's missing and all of that. There's not a big love story. The thing that they have by the train, which there's aspects of Schindler's List going on there, very
I
big as
thought of that
well.
too. I thought of that
Yeah,
too. It felt like a World War II scene to
big
me.
time.
Yes.
That's where you could have another boring scene where there's a little train taking off. You got 50 extras there, and they're all sitting there, and then oh, there she is. He makes that chaotic as fuck, and he turns that into a Schindler's List fucking moment that people are being pulled onto a train, pulled off. Oh my God, Roy, this, that, what's happening? Ah, he heightens every sequence, and he
Yeah.
goes, not good enough. What can we do to bring this up to 11? And he every fucking scene, he does that so beautifully, and that's why I can't wait till we finally talk about Schindler's List. Like, I mean, that's
Did you catch this? That he cuts out to a wide shot to end that scene, that train scene, and
it's zoomed in on the two of them, and they're hugging. Is that the shot?
yes, but then at the end there's like a wider shot that shows the whole crowd, and they're in the middle of the frame, and they hug each other.
Yes,
And I
they touch
thought
each
that
other's. They
Roy,
hold each other's faces.
yes,
Within
yes.
that
I thought that Roy, and you can't hear the dialogue at this point because
dialogue
the
at all.
camera's so
Yeah.
far away. But I thought that Roy actually mouths the words "I love you." Did you catch that?
Okay, so I have something to say about this. He might have. Now, one thing I will say, and this is again, I don't want to talk about the two different cuts, but I have to here. In the cut that is in the 98 cut, which is his final whatever, when there is the shower sequence, after the shower sequence, he comes out in the room and he holds Terry Garr's face like that. And he goes, just hold me. I need to be held. Just please, honey, honey, I need anything from you. And he's
Oh.
saying that deep actor moment, like, just be here for me. And that's when she pulls away from him and she locks herself back in the bathroom. And that
Oh,
is
wow.
so reflective of that moment
Wow.
of what he gets from the Terry Garr character. He gets that emotion from her. So there is definitely the aspect of a cheating type, whatever. Hey, I'm getting this type of thing from
Oh,
over here
man.
versus over here. That's
Now I want to go
it's
back and
huge.
watch the director's cut.
Yeah, you're
That's
definitely gonna.
crazy.
That's he considers that his final version. Yeah,
That's crazy. I see. So there's a parallel there where
there's a duality of that.
he's
Yeah,
asking for that moment, hold me, give me
I
what I
need.
need.
I need. Yeah.
Wow. And then she doesn't, and then he gets it later from the other woman. That's really interesting.
There's definitely that aspect that's going on there. But
Yeah.
I do, just to kind of answer your original question of that, I do think that that is a conduit to him getting to the spaceship because the aliens pick him at the end and the whole thing.
Yeah.
He and her are joint characters who can help themselves to accomplish the task. And their task isn't fuck, breed, fall in love, be together. Their accomplishment of their task is like the other 12 or 14 people who show up at the Devil's Tower, which is I have this compulsive thing that I will drop anything in my life, everything I've ever built, my entire family's, all of them, to get to this area because there is a compulsion that I know that I need to get here. So I don't think Spielberg, I think there are the themes definitely of cheating, this, that, whole, totally in there. But the final ultimate goal is never for them to be together. That's not their motivation.
Right. It's not a romance movie. There's not even a romance subplot. They do get one kiss at the end.
Mhm.
It's not even that romantic of a kiss. It's more of just a connection.
It's not a sexual. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's more of a just like we understand each other.
Yes.
I felt like there was this like two peas in a pod quality of just like someone else understands me. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking
That's the thing. Yeah.
and by the way, the two women look incredibly similar.
Very true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it really feels like it's almost like this is, what he wishes his wife would give him, this same understanding, but she's just not. But this other woman is giving it to him and he more so goes in that direction. Yeah.
He definitely has those themes in there. He 100% is playing that. He's playing that harpsichord right there to have those themes in there, big time.
When, like you said, when you're a kid, you don't really think about it. You're just thinking, go with the aliens. That looks awesome. When
Exactly.
you're an adult and you watch it, it was interesting because I thought, okay, I say it's my favorite Spielberg movie. This might be, for me, maybe the weakest element is just the fact that a screenwriter is writing it in this way, where he's showing this family that's having struggle and tension, and then he's the the actual writer is giving the character this other option. Here's this other woman who's single and has a little boy, and maybe it's almost like maybe you should be with her. And I thought that was interesting that a writer would actually do that and kind of push this character away from his family, as if we're rooting for him to leave his family and cheat on his wife. That's a strange thing to root for as an audience member. So I thought that was interesting. And I think maybe that comes from youth. He was a young man at the time. I don't think he had children at that time. I don't think he was married. He
No,
might have been
yeah.
married. I don't know if he was married.
I think he might have been married the first time, but I don't know if that happened until the early 80s. 84, he met, Willie Scott.
Kate Capshaw. Yeah.
Yeah, Willie Scott.
But I think there's clearly something going on here with family and divorce, which of course
Big
is,
time.
Spielberg themes.
And that's the reshoot with the kid going, cry baby," and
Right.
that scene. I would suggest, I know we're gonna watch something for next week, but I would suggest rewatching just for that sequence, because that sequence is it's so heart wrenching. Like this guy, they got to see their father be destroyed, and he's now nothing. Now, instead of just the opening of the film where he's a child, he's now can't control himself in any way whatsoever. And the mother is distraught that that's happening. And then the oldest son comes in and starts pointing at him, going, cry, baby, like, Father, you are nothing. You are not my hero. You are absolutely nothing to me. And then he's just sitting there in this state of loss. Like, there's so much being pulled within that sequence that is really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, and there's a shift because earlier in the film, you get the sense that the kids align with Roy. They say, "We believe in aliens too." And the mom says, "No, no, Roy, don't tell them that," right? But the kids are like looking at Roy like he's our example, he's our leader, and we love him. And then that shifts over the course of the film, especially the oldest son, which I noticed. The oldest son is the one who cries at the dinner table when he's,
Yeah.
sculpting the mashed potatoes. And that
'Cause
older
he
son,
has he has no more father figure. He has no more guidance to go by, and he realizes, "Wait, I'm the man of the house right now."
right.
And that's a very sad, thing to realize if you're, like, a fucking 10-year-old kid, and you're going, "I can't trust my father anymore." Like,
Yeah.
that's a brutal, thing that they're exploring, and those scenes felt to me very much like E.T., where the father's not there anymore.
Yeah.
That's when you have that
Yeah.
family dynamic right there, and you go, "He's in Mexico," and the same thing, 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl, very close related.
Yeah. Hazel said to me at the end of the movie, she said, "I think that was a whole movie where Spielberg was trying to understand why would my father leave our family? Like there must have been such a good reason. It's almost like he's trying to create a good enough reason to justify this is why this might happen is because maybe my dad was, off on an alien spaceship. It's like a kid, has to somehow reconcile with that. And how do you do that? And I mean, I can't imagine. My parents are still together. So, um,
Yeah, thank God, so are mine.
yeah, I think that there is something going on there with that. That I think part of it is almost like an autobiography where Spielberg perhaps has had these kind of experiences himself. Perhaps with the aliens or the more fantastical elements. I think there's definitely something personal going on there with him, but then the family element as well. And that's why I said that it's almost like every single character is like a shade of his psyche,
Yeah.
at the time, right? Obviously, the person who wrote that script, that's his psyche on the page. And maybe that
Right.
oldest son too, crying at that dinner table, maybe that's the way he felt, you know.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, first of all, number 1, Hazel, her hard point of perspective on that is fantastic. I think that's great. I think she would love watching The Fablemans. It's a different thing where the mother leaves,
Okay.
and that's a movie that you should definitely watch. We will get that on the list. I will just go back quickly to the thing. The kid said ice cream. I think the cops walking up. I mean, we're not even going to get to the part where we talk about them. The fact that it's a set. I can't even believe to this day when they're all on the top of the mountain looking up at all the kids, or at all the things flying by and the helicopters come in.
Right. Yeah,
When they're all
ice
in
cream. I
that's
love
all
that.
that's all on a
Yes,
stage.
yes,
The
yes.
ice cream, yeah, that's all on a set. Like, I can't
Yeah,
even
that was
imagine
great.
that to this day doing that. Now, but when he goes with the cops and does whatever, the cops walking up into the frame is such a Hitchcock moment. Each one of those cops walking up to me, I was like, "This is Spielberg doing not dolly in, static frame, wide angle lens, walk up into my frame." It's very Hitchcock. So then there's the one scene that's not in your version is the Guabi Desert with the UN flags and the miniature force perspective with the
Yeah.
boat. We already talked about that.
That's
Um,
um that's interesting. It probably it feels a little when you say it out loud, it feels a little bit like a repeat. Like it
it
could be
does.
cut.
It's
It
a
could be cut.
fantastic
Because
force
we
perspective.
open
I think it's
with
one of the best
yeah.
force
Oh yeah,
perspectives
yeah,
ever done.
yeah.
But besides that, it's a repeat.
And to go with Spielberg's interest in World War II as well, notice how the movie opens with World War II planes, and then the World War II pilots come back at the end. So, even here, right? I said with Jaws, I said this movie's about World War II. And now again, he's making another movie that has these World War II layers. So, Raiders of the Lost Ark about the Nazis, World War II, Empire of the Sun, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan. How many times does this guy return to World War II as a theme?
He is a Jewish man, and I think that World War II
Yeah,
was
of a certain generation, right?
pretty fucking of a certain generation, but I think it's pretty ingrained in his head how big that effect was on, culture and life and like there's no escaping that. Like it's you grow up with that.
As a horror movie fan, what do you make of the scene in the middle where Barry is taken? And it's done like a horror movie. So here
Well, I
the
think it's great,
aliens
and
aren't
especially
friendly, right? It's scary.
right. And the music, comes in on that. I think a record player falls down, and that specific one is playing like a 1950s, like, it's not Sam Cooke, but it sounds like some
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yes, that was beautiful when the music came in,
yeah,
and then just the lights of shining through the windows, and just again the artistry.
it's perfect. So, there's one thing because you brought up toys before, I wanna tell you
Mm.
about that Dalian shot. It's like a 12-foot Dalian shot that goes all the way to his face. What Spielberg needed to do when they cast him when he was 3 years old, I don't know if he was 4 when they shot this or whatever, but he's a really young kid. To keep his eyes over there, Spielberg and this brilliant part about Spielberg, he talks about torturing the child, but he says it in a very nice way. He would tell him before the sequence because, "Hey, you can't explain, 'Hey, we're filming and we're doing this.'" The kid doesn't care. He goes, I have a present for you." And he would show him a present wrapped with a bow over it. And he goes, "I have a present for you." So Spielberg went outside, climbed a ladder, and sat at the top of the ladder. And as they're doing the Dalians, he's slowly unpackaging the present. He's pulling the bow off the top, and the kid's looking and looking and looking, and they're doing the shot over and over. And he goes, "I'm torturing this kid, like waiting. What is the present that I've got for him?" And he starts pulling them out, and that's why the kid says, "Toys, toys," because Spielberg starts pulling out toys from the thing, and
Okay.
the kid's obsessed, staring with those eyes, and it works perfectly because that's what a kid would think about these glowing things coming from the sky. They're toys, and it just works brilliantly. But just picture Spielberg on a ladder doing that to get the performance out of the kid, because that's he'll do anything you need to get the performance.
I loved how the kid was never scared of the aliens. I loved the
Never.
contrast between the way the adults reacted and the way the kid reacts. And even at the very, very beginning on the road, when the little kid is like, he's doing a sculpture first before Roy starts his sculpture. The kid is doing a sculpture in the mud. And that's when Roy first sees it and says, "Wait a minute, what is this? I know this." And Roy is like frustrated. He's like, "What is this?" But the little boy is just calmly, he's just sculpting it, and I
Just
noticed the
accepts it.
difference. Yes, I loved that. I loved that. And, the mother's terrified, but the boy is not terrified. And even when the boy comes back at the end, he runs out of the spaceship and he's just like, he's totally fine.
You picked up on the biggest metaphor that I watched an interview with Spielberg talking about, and he was talking about the boy opening the door. And that was
Mm,
the big shot, and that was like,
yeah,
if we want to talk about best
one of
shots,
the best
I have a different
shots.
one. I have a different one, but I think it is one of the best. It's the most iconic from the movie. But that to Spielberg was the metaphor for a child will open the door
Oh,
to
okay.
anything and
Yes.
not be afraid. So you're on this exact same thing of what he was trying to get across for in that. And the mother comes and she shuts the door and she's terrified of this
Aha.
thing. But the child, I will take this door and I will open it. And he was doing a metaphor saying, like, back in the 1950s, 60s, we would open the door to anyone. We would have a childlike quality. He goes, nowadays, you don't open the door to people and you kind
Mm.
of feel like you can't open the door to people. Might be a
That's really
mental block, this and
interesting.
that, but that's a
Yeah.
metaphor that he specifically brought up with that.
I love that. Yeah, the mom has a more torn relationship to what's going on. You know, she's a little bit scared, she's a little bit reluctant. Even at the end when they're on the mountain, she's like, I can't go further. You know, to me, this is enough. And her goal is like mostly like to get Barry back. She wants to protect her child. And yes, she's drawing the sketches. Yes, she's been imprinted also, you know, but her relationship with her son and protecting her son and getting him back is such a huge motivation for her. Whereas Roy is more like the boy. He's more just curious. He more just wants to go with it and learn and discover.
And that might be one of the reasons that the aliens want him. I don't know. That's the one weird aspect of the movie is why do the aliens forcefully take Barry?
Mm,
And I'm sure they're forcefully taking other people. Like
they
there was an
are.
interesting thing in that the aliens when they took the guys from World War II and the crafts, right? They took them,
Yeah.
but they're very specifically this time not taking all people that were in one flight craft or on one in the other version on one ship. They're going around taking different people from different places, very specific people who Barry is going, he's using his little ketone thing going da na 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 na, which is a great cut, and we don't have enough time to talk about
Yeah.
everything, but they're specifically speaking to Barry, and Barry is, like you said, making the little mound out of whatever, and he's doing his thing. So they're in his brain, and they're in that young child's brain, and they're specifically looking at taking certain people this time.
That's interesting. If you, I'm thinking more about a parallel between Roy and Barry. And you know, you said that Ronnie, Roy's wife, is almost like a mother to him, right? She's taking care of him.
Big time, yeah.
And he leaves just like Barry leaves his mother. So there is this kind of subtle theme of like the young men
It's interesting.
leaving their mothers, you know, leaving the woman who's trying to protect them and care for them, right?
Actually, wait a minute. You just hit on something.
Hmm.
Did the aliens never take a woman? That's an interesting thing.
I did notice there were some women that came out of the ship at the end,
Okay, I missed that.
but I don't think the movie ever focused on that as a, you know, is something of importance.
Yeah, because I know of all the guys who were flying in the planes. Those were like men flying in the planes. Barry is a little boy. Other people who were called to the area were women of different ages and this and that. But yeah, no, it's good. I didn't actually concentrate on that. I have to watch that again. Who comes out of the ship?
Yeah.
Northern India. That was one of the last things that was shot. You know, when all their fingers point up.
Love that moment. Yeah.
And that's the first time you hear the "na, na, 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 na." That was one of the last scenes that was shot for the original shooting in the movie, and that shot of all their fingers pointing up, going, "Ah!" Like, dude, I
Yeah.
mean, forget about
Yeah.
it. Forget about it.
And then the cut to all the men standing up at the, you know, conference. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're listening to the thing of it again,
Yeah.
and just yeah, and then he does the sign language, which I think is a very interesting thing that they put in there, and I think it's a nice little device because it becomes the one thing that they're without the ending and the weird, you know, the little alien, I forget what his name was. Spielberg had a name for him, but when he comes out and he mimics what Francois Truffaut does. Without that, there's no point for sign language in the entire movie. There's Francois Truffaut doing it at the first part. Maybe you have a different thing to say against it, but I'm saying if the alien doesn't mimic it at the end, I don't know if specifically Francois Truffaut taking the time to showcase sign language means anything, but
Yeah.
let me let you talk.
Well, there's just a theme going on of nonverbal communication, you know,
Mhm.
that you have, of course, the music, and then you have the sign language with the hands. And so, I think just this idea that these are beings who communicate in a way that is not with a spoken language. It's something that's more perhaps abstract.
I agree with you on that. The
Mm.
only thing I would say is they have the giant board in the background showing lights and color and spatial relationships. So I would be
Right.
like, you could cut out the sign language if the little guy doesn't come out and actually do it. You know what I mean? I think it's a nice I think it's one of the first Spielberg ending movie moments, which I think why some people might look at the end of the movie and go, "That's a little too Spielberg." This is the first time he actually does a Spielberg ending to a movie that he became so good at doing, and I think it really works, because I think the way that he set up the entire movie pays the ending of this movie off so well. If you're with him on the ride to when they get there, when Roy takes off his mask and they start running up the thing, the ending of this movie and that whole editing, that goes on in the ending of this movie, which we have to get to, because I think it is one of the most genius, like, 20-25 minutes of an ending of a movie and a Spielberg movie ever. It's an opera orchestra, beautiful fucking play the pop tones, greatest thing that I've ever seen. I used to rewatch it over and over as a child, nonstop, freaking out, going, "I've never seen things like this, and I love listening to this." I'm almost upset that there's never been, like, a rap song remix of da na 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 na, because when it goes da 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 da, and it goes into that, I
Yeah,
think that is
yeah.
a fantastic orchestra.
Yeah, I feel like for me, this is why I think the movie elevates to being my favorite Spielberg movie is this whole ending sequence. Because I love the fact that at that point, there's no conflict. The conflict goes away. So it's like he's trying to get to that point for the whole movie, right? And we said how there's always something pushing back against him. Of course, then you go into this whole military sequence where he's driving to Wyoming and the military's trying to stop him and they have barricades and they're trying to scare the townsfolk. And he's taken into the room by Lacombe, right, and the cartographer, and questioned, and it feels like he might not even be able to get there, and they're on the mountain, they're on the Devil's Tower, and the helicopters are flying over, trying to gas them and knock them out, and trying to stop them from just getting to the top of the tower. But then the moment they get to the top of the tower, that's it. Like, the conflict is over, and now you're just there, and now you're just witnessing, the majesty and the wonder. And to me, that's just such an unusual ending to a movie. I mean, when was the last time you ever saw an end to a movie that was just all the characters standing there just experiencing something together, without there being conflict, like, some kind of fight, right? Or so like a
The
fist
ending of
fight
Indiana
or
Jones
yeah.
the ending of Indiana Jones Part 4. I think that one, maybe
Uh,
potentially, which is another Spielberg. That's the only reason that my mind went to it when the waters are going away, but it's not I didn't wanna take the wind out of your sails. I just wanted to say that random thing.
but I just love that. And then the whole sequence becomes again like a mini escalation, And I loved how throughout that sequence you didn't know when it was going to end. That when the
Right.
first three ships come in and just have their little lights and they fly away,
Oh, it's
all the
so
guys
good.
all the guys say, "Well, that's it, folks,"
They
like and yeah,
clap, and there's a whole, "Hey, that's the end of the
yeah,
thing.
it's
That wasn't
done.
that
It's
cool?"
over,
And
right?
when because they raise, and he's out there going, "Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da," and they're da 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 da, and you're like, "Oh, that's the release. Oh, that's good." But that's just the beginning. That's the intro to the main show that you're about to see.
I mean, yeah, and like talk about favorite shot. I mean, it's almost impossible. I mean, you have the little boy in the doorway, of course, but then that mothership rising from behind the Devil's Tower. Yeah,
I rewound that VHS tape on that shot like 8,000 times when I was a kid. I could
yeah,
not stop watching that because I didn't understand, how did you take, like, I was a little kid, so I didn't understand, I understood miniatures and I understood what was going on, but I didn't understand how you took I didn't understand matting. Like, you can put a I go, "How does the thing come out from behind the big thing, and it's there, and that represents this," and I would just watch it over and over and over and over.
Yeah. So not traditional conflict, but the movie is constantly changing and evolving. And so it's like at first you think, okay, just the three little spacecrafts, then the mothership comes, and then the mothership flies over, and then it turns upside down,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, I think that, the mothership is just this is what it looks like. And then no, it rotates. And it's like, that's not what it looks like. It's not what you thought. Right. And it's part of the kind of idea of the movie. You have to see things from a different angle, right? You have to see things from the flip side, and you see the full view.
And he sets that up because the ice cream cone, as it flies over the thing, does the exact same thing. It flips from one side to the
Mm.
other as it turns and goes around the corner.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if they're if they don't care about gravity or they're sitting there in anti-gravity or the ship spins and they don't, but it's a theme that's set up within this.
And then you have the whole musical sequence with the mothership, like you said, da na 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 na, and I love the bah bah and the glass
Bum bum.
breaks and the glass break.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, so good.
amazing. And then you think that that's it, right? Then you think, okay, that was the big finale with the mothership showed
Right.
up, and then you have the music, and then that's like the real contact. Then they really made contact, and you think, okay, that's it, right? Exactly. And then it opens up, and then like the missing people come out, and then you think that's it. Right, and then you think, okay, that, and then the ship actually closes, right? So this is what I love so much about that sequence, is it just continues to escalate, but it's not conflict, it's just development. It shows you more and more and more, to a point where, how far is it going to go, and then it opens back up.
Yeah, no, I'm silent because that ending of that movie floors me on a way that I can't
Yeah.
comprehend even to this day. I used to rewatch it nonstop, and then I got to hear Spielberg for the research I was doing on this one and just rewatching old interviews. He goes, "To this day, that is the hardest thing that I've ever had to edit." And he had one editor sitting there with him in a rented apartment that they had with film canisters through the goddamn roof, and you know that in those are, "Okay, we don't have final versions of effect shots that are going on in here, but we're gonna be cutting this fucking thing," and he said to this day, in the interview that I watched with him from 2009, was saying that's the hardest thing that I've ever had to edit, and it's so fucking good. And those 5 tones, I only wanna speak on those 5 tones because he worked so long with John Williams to get what are the 5 tones gonna be? Because John Williams is like, "7 tones is a song. We can't do 7."
Mm.
And he's like, "4 doesn't work because it's not anything." And he was like, "5 tones can be a communication." And Spielberg's like, "Okay, now we have to figure out what those are." So it's so simple when you watch the ending movie just to go, "Oh, yeah, of course it would always be da na 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 na." I was obsessed with those 5 tones as a kid. Like, with Little Barry going, "Da-na-na," like, as a kid, I was obsessed with those, and I couldn't even tell you why. But then if you go, would there be 5 different notes that could do this? I'm trusting the fact that Spielberg and Williams went through all five notes that they could ever go through, and then go, "These are the best 5 notes for what we're trying to communicate within our film." And they struck to me when I was watching this as I was little Barry watching this movie. I was watching this going, "This makes sense. This means something." Like, when I was a kid watching this movie with no one else watching this movie, I was watching it over and over and over going, "This means something."
Yeah, it does.
It speaks on such a deep level, and I attribute most of that to how into this story Spielberg was, and you can see it bleeding out through every shot, through every frame. He
Yeah.
was obsessed with going, "This means something. Pay attention to my story. Here's my characters. Here's the story I'm trying to tell. Here's the effects that I'm using. I'm giving everything I can into telling this movie in the best way." And that's what filmmaking is. He transcended it to a piece of art that he's going, "This is art through a movie and I want to show this to a mass audience and I want you to love this thing and I want you to be connected to it.
Yeah. I want you to feel the transcendence. I want to take you away.
I want you to feel it.
Yeah. Feel it. Yeah, exactly. I want you to feel it. I want you to experience this, and he's going to give you that experience, vicariously through the movie. And speaking of one of my favorite shots, at the end when the ship opens up and you just get the line of guys with their shadows on the ground, right?
I mean, cinematography. Fred, we just have to quickly say cinematography.
Yeah.
Fucking greatest
Yeah.
fucking cinematography.
Yeah.
We don't have much time. The whole thing, fucking greatest cinematography. Like fucking beautiful.
Yeah. Vilmos Zsigmond. Yeah, one of the greatest ever. But then the ship open, they close the ship, and I noticed that he gives you this little false ending where it's like, okay, now you thought you really got the whole thing, and the ship closes, and then it opens back up, and then it's like, okay, wait a minute.
Everyone's, oh my god, what's happening?
Yeah, and now what now? And then he gives you what Stanley Kubrick didn't want to give you in 2001. He actually shows you the aliens. What do the aliens actually look like? And you get to have the real close encounter. You actually meet them face to face.
The first spider thing that comes out is one of the greatest looking, and the music, the way it goes, and then
And
it
the
goes into the
music.
da
Yeah.
na 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 as he's coming out there, and
Yeah.
it's the moment where it's going, are you gonna be scared at this, or are you gonna be accepting?
Right.
And that's the whole dynamic.
I just noticed there's a connection between that opening I said I liked, where the music rises and it goes dun and it cuts in on the white frame. They do that again when you first see the alien. The music goes dun and it gives you a cut and it's a mostly white frame.
That's a good connection. Holy shit. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a new beginning. Yeah.
No, that's really good.
Right?
That's really good.
Yeah, and I don't know how other people feel about the aliens, but I feel like, especially for the time, I feel like they look great. And I think it's very cool the way he did it with it's mostly backlit, So again, speaking of, spirituality, religion, God, the Ten Commandments, you get that glowing white light. And it's almost so bright you almost can't even see the aliens, which I love because you wouldn't want to just show them, fully lit.
No, you don't wanna show them.
Yeah. So you keep a little mystery,
Yeah, leave it up to the audience
a
mind.
little bit.
So I'll give you this. I'm so glad they went with kids in little body masks and whatever running around versus what Spielberg's original idea was, which was, and they apparently did camera tests for this, which was putting monkeys in suits on roller skates because he wanted them
Is that
to be able
real?
to float. That's real. That's real. He wanted them to be able to
Wow.
float,
Oh, okay,
and they
like
apparently,
glide. So they look like,
yeah,
okay.
glide. So he goes, "Oh, we'll put monkeys because it won't look
Okay.
like humans because I want them to be non-humanoid, and we'll put them on this, and we'll
Okay.
see what happens." And I haven't seen any of those tests. I've just heard about those tests, and I watched people interviewed about those tests. Obviously, those tests went really bad, and we said, "Let's
That's
not do
great.
that. Let's rely on our cinematographer, and let's light this correctly." And this works. I have no problem with
Uh,
the ending. I think it works great.
because he wanted them to be elegant, probably, and
Right.
graceful, right? He wanted them to be graceful. And when that first alien comes out, the spider-looking one, it's incredibly graceful,
That's fantastic. Yeah.
right? And it moves so smoothly. And I think that just gives it this otherworldly quality.
I do too, but he realized that a monkey on roller skates in a suit is not
No,
graceful,
no, it's
and he
like,
said, "Okay, we tried."
yeah. But didn't he hire dancers as well for that?
I think you might be right. That's flashing me
Yeah,
back to, like,
yeah,
VHS documentary I
right.
might have watched, but I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I think again, the idea that they move differently, that they don't
Yes.
look human, they don't feel
It didn't
human.
want it to be humanoid. He didn't want it to be human or humanoid.
Yes, again, the feeling, and this is what Spielberg is a master of, is conjuring a feeling, and he knows how to do
100%.
that, and so he gives you it just looks different, it's lit differently, it feels different, and then, yeah, and then, of course, Roy gets taken away, and he gets chosen.
No, I mean the interesting thing about the ending of that was that Spielberg wanted at one point he was thinking about the alien who comes out to do the sign language was going to stay with the
Oh,
humans.
that they
So there was going
switch.
to be a transfer of,
Okay.
hey, we're giving you one and we're taking one as a
Oh,
nice type of thing. He also explored other ideas I just kind of want to throw in here randomly is some of the ships or some of the signs they were going to be giving were going to be big M's that looked like McDonald's signs. Because in his thought process, the aliens were looking down on Earth, going, this sign must mean something to
because
them.
they're
So
everywhere.
let's show this, because they're everywhere. So let's show this sign back. So it's
Oh,
cool to
that's
see the
great.
thought processes about him and the way that he indoctrinated certain ideas. And then what he wanted to do was one giant plate. Then that was going to be just like the alien ship comes over, and then I don't know if it was again Rob McCory or somebody else who came back in who said, "Here's my sketch drawing of what I think it should look like," and it looked like a giant industrial type thing, that was put together. So that's just I love the look of the ship. Just want to throw that in there.
Yeah. And I actually feel like the whole movie, in a way, is kind of building up to that close up of his face when he's being taken to the ship and he looks back, and you get the glowing behind his head, and it's like his goodbye to Earth, and he doesn't know if he's coming back. I realized this when I was watching the movie this time, is like those pilots in World War II, they're gone for 50 years, so I mean, or 40 years or however long,
No, no,
right?
everyone that they loved when they
Yeah,
came back is now dead.
yeah,
So
exactly.
if he comes back, his wife will be 80 and his kids will be 60,
Yeah, he doesn't
whatever,
know,
if he comes back in the
yeah,
same time period. But he doesn't care. He
right,
doesn't care.
right.
That's the thing.
And he looks back and you get this a gorgeous close up, that's backlit with that glowing light. And it makes me think about Indiana Jones as well, that Indiana Jones is given some shots in those movies where he has like glowing light behind his head, and it's like he's an enlightened person. He knows that magic exists. It's like he thinks differently. He sees the world differently from everybody else. And here I think that's what this is showing you, is that Roy looks back and he has the glow of enlightenment now, you know? And I kind of see that as the actual like pinnacle shot of the movie. Of course, then the spaceship takes off, but that's more of like a little epilogue in a way. But it's like, Lacombe actually asks Roy, what do you want? And I think in a way he doesn't. He says, I just want to know it's real. But I think in a way and again, the idea of being real, Pinocchio, I want to be a real boy. And then I wish upon a star, and that musical refrain comes in at the end, right? So it's almost like I want to know does he want to know it's real, or does he want to know he's real? I want to know
Right.
I'm real. I want to be real. And then you get that glow of enlightenment behind his head. And it's like, I think in that moment, it's like he's real, he's become a real boy. And then he goes on to the ship.
You're real and you abandon your entire family and you're a terrible father and you're a horrible husband. And that's why Spielberg has that's why it's cool that he came up with this movie in his 20s and then he had certain things he wanted to say, he wanted to get out there. So then he looks back later and goes, yeah, I'm not the same person, but I still want to structure this thing in a certain way for a certain time period. I want to be right to what I was feeling at the time. And that's an interesting thing as an artist, because if you're any artist that's worth their salt who lives fucking 50 years, you have different feelings and you see life in a different way. But I think it's important that he keeps the movie in the way that he saw it when he was this artist who designed all of these shots and did all of these things and had all of these feelings. Because if you try to recreate that and go, oh, well, now I'm going to redo that movie based upon what I feel now, which I don't think he did with the 98 cut. I think he did even more excuses of why Roy acts this way in the way that Roy would act if he was taken over by this thought process that becomes more important to him than his family. I don't know why the aliens decided to pick certain people or why they decided to go, I'm going to destroy this guy's family, but they did. And maybe it's for
Yeah,
some greater
yeah,
reason. Or maybe it's just because they really want to fuck around with Roy's DNA
yeah.
because it's interesting and they're going to take him up there and go, you know what? Roy's DNA is different than all the other DNA. We're going to put his DNA again with little Barry's DNA and then we're going to make our lives better. Who knows?
Well, I think Roy has something that is special and different in the sense that he's the guy who can actually get there. You know, he's the only one who makes it all the way to Devil's Tower on that day. You know, he's the only regular civilian.
The only person who would destroy his entire family to pick
Right.
the aliens and that journey over what he had. He would sacrifice,
Yes.
like Jesus, he would sacrifice everything for the mission.
Yeah. And, you know, something that I think a lot about with stories is how I think audiences take for granted the fact that you have a main character and then that main character has something important happen to them at the end. And you think, well, of course, because they're the main character. But why are they the main character? I like to think
Right.
about stories in reverse, where I think we're going to tell you a story about the guy who ended up on that ship. And we're going to backtrack now and say, what was his life before that? You know?
That's interesting. Is that how you come up with stories? I just want to know your thought process because that's interesting.
I think you can, yeah, for sure, do that. So I think that's part of, you know, why Roy was chosen is because he's the one, you know, where the aliens know he has that drive, you know, when he drives through the Wyoming highway and there's all the animals and he's like, I just know this is staged. I can't explain it. I just don't care. Like he's willing to die. He's willing to risk his life. Like he's like, you know, this is the most important thing to me, you know? And how many people are willing to do that? And he is, but he gets rewarded for it.
So, since you brought it up, I do
Oh
want to talk
boy.
about my favorite shot in the movie.
Okay.
And it actually ties into the movie Misery. It's exactly what you brought up right now when he sees the cows.
Mm.
There is one shot that I don't think you notice how brilliant this shot is. It cuts to POV of the car. He's just driving over, all the roadblocks. But they're in the middle of the road. And you hear, what are those? And then you get to see the front of the car smash through the roadblock. And that's just funny, number one. That's joke number one. Then you get to see we're on the hood of the car. You get to see it pans when we see the dead cows. And then it completes the pan, and we're on the hood of the car looking back at his reaction to seeing the dead cows.
Okay.
Now, this specific shot, when you rewatch it again, which we will after this episode is over, I can't imagine who was out there on the hood of the car panning this around, or if they had a rope attached to it to pan it, or what they were doing, because the opening of the shot is driving 55 miles an hour through a giant piece of wood that explodes. And number one, that is exceedingly funny. What are those? That line is delivered hilariously. Then there's an explosion of the wood. Then we see dead cows, and we whip around to him. It's my favorite shot in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
What is your favorite shot in the movie?
I don't know what my favorite shot would be, but since we're at the end and we're talking about the ending and we've mentioned Barry in the door and I've mentioned a few other shots, I have to say, like, I don't know if there's a single moment that is better than just the finale when that ship takes off. I mean, to see just when Roy gets on the ship and the ship just slowly and the music is going and that ship just slowly floats in the air. I don't know, man. To me, those shots just have this transcendent feeling. And then, of course, the credits kind of slowly come in. And I mean, it's not like any kind of like the story's over at that point, but just to see the ship flying in the sky and knowing that, you know, our main character's on that ship and it kind of feels like we're on that ship.
It does. It feels
right?
like we're on that ship. That's a huge part about what you just said right there. It
Yeah.
feels like we're on the ship.
Yeah. So Spielberg didn't want to go inside the ship. We don't get to see inside, but it's like again the feeling. And again, leaving it to your imagination,
Yeah.
and letting it be more alive in your mind. It's like he's like a master persuader where he can conjure the image in your mind, right? And he puts it there and it's your image of what it means. And the ship flies away and just every single time I watch this movie, I don't know, I'm kind of speechless. This is breathtaking. To me it's like my breath is just taken away and I just sit there like in this state of awe.
He's a master. He's a master of filmmaking.
Yeah. And I just watch that ship fly away and the lights and the fact that everything's dark. It's almost like the light we our podcast is called Light Up the Dark, because it's like the light in the darkness, right? The light inside of yourself. And that's what you're seeing is these beautiful lights of this magical object, this spacecraft that defies the laws of the planet Earth. That we don't understand how it works, you know? And it's just absolutely transporting. So I think I would have to say that, yeah, it's like the last shot of the movie is my favorite shot. Yeah. And then there's a series of shots, and it cuts to, a wide shot and, but you just get,
No, I know what you
yeah,
mean. I mean, you don't have to define it in one shot. That's
yeah,
more you're defining the feeling of the end of that movie within those subsequent shots of the spaceship being lifted. It's on.
yeah.
w- We give you the pass on this specific movie of saying not defining the specific shot because you're right. That ending
Yeah.
sequence is so cohesive when it's lifting and when the music is going and the feeling that you get of that.
Yeah.
It's a cohesive feeling of going, "Oh my god, this is just fucking I just went through this fucking journey," and you specifically said it, I feel like the main character. I feel like I went on the I finally feel the release. This guy has felt no release since he first encountered, getting half of his face fucking turned red, and he's been obsessed, and it's been crazy, and he destroyed his life, his family, everything else he left behind, and finally, at the end of the movie like, imagine at the end of the movie, he's about to enter the spaceship and the government came and dragged him away. You'd be like, I'm walking out of the theater, I'm gonna blow my head off. He needs to get on that spaceship.
And you know what else is at that point too? It's like it's just it's peaceful, right? There's no more conflict. There's no more trying to get there. There's no more struggle. Now you're just in this state of serenity. It is like you said, like the release, and now you can just float, and just floating.
Thank you, Steven Spielberg, for being,
Yeah. Yeah.
as cool as you were in 1977 to fight for what you wanted to get done, you got it done, and people are here 50 years later still talking about it, so you're the shit again.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, I mean, when we did Superman, I thanked Richard Donner, but as we were talking about this, I did think that, I'm sure Spielberg has received a million thank yous, but this is one where you want to say thank you for making such a beautiful artistic movie that's also entertaining. It also is fun, but it's just transcendent and mind-blowing.
He made me wanna make movies, and I understand the language of film primarily through his eyes, so I love the guy.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that the reason that I think the movie is so special to me, especially now at this point in my life, is that this is a movie about following the signs. I think that like what I always ask myself, like, what is this movie about? And this movie's about a lot of things. But I feel like I just wanted to say this is a movie that it shows you that you have to follow the signs, that the universe is there to point you in the right direction. It's there to help you and it's trying to give you these signs. And the Roy character is a character who follows the signs. You know, he has the courage to do that. And we talked about that. We talked about, you know, why was he chosen? And I think that that's part of it, is that he has the courage to do that. Is that he sees these little things and he says this means something. You know, that line of like, this is important. It's an important line in the movie. And I think Spielberg is trying to tell that to the audience. He's trying to say there's more to the world than you think. And when you see something small that you might dismiss as, you know, meaningless, it's not meaningless. It means something. And, you know, the universe speaks to people in this way. And I feel like now when I watch the movie, I just appreciate that so much, because I can tell you that in my life, when I have done that, when I have followed the signs, I feel like I am always rewarded for it. And my life changed when I moved to LA because I want to be a filmmaker. And I moved to LA. I made a choice, you know, and it was a big thing for me to do. And I did that, and I was rewarded for it. You know, my life changed at that point because I was taking a step to make my dreams come true. And so I just wanted to say that. I think that that's what, you know, is for me so special about this movie, is that it's a movie about a regular guy, you know, and he finds himself in this extraordinary circumstance because he has the courage to follow the signs. And I just love that about the movie. That's all. Yeah,
I agree.
that's it.
I agree. The only thing I'd want to potentially add to that specifically is that by following the signs, he blew up his entire life. And we don't get to see what happens when he goes on the spaceship. We don't get to see if he has regret or he finally has relief to the fact of, ah, wait, I'm finally here, I made it. And then we don't get to see the moment of him going, wait, what did I just do? Because I think the whole movie has a theme of communication, and he's trying to communicate with these outer beings, but he didn't communicate with his own family. And I think this is the weird regret that Spielberg had years later when he goes, I wouldn't have had a character go up there, and I'm glad he did, and I'm glad that whole thing. But there's an aspect there too. We don't get to see. We think Roy got on the spaceship, and that's the end of the story. And wonderful. He got everything he ever wanted. But it's not anything he ever wanted. It's only things he wanted for the past 2 weeks since he was programmed by them to feel this thing. But by feeling that thing, he blew up his entire life. And maybe that's the metaphor for cheating. Maybe that's the metaphor for, oh, wow, this new shiny thing just entered my life. Fuck my family, fuck everything else. And now I'm going to fuck this new hot chick that I just saw. And as soon as you get her and those doors close, Roy is sitting there on that spaceship going, what the fuck did I just do? We only get to see the outside shot as the thing takes off and we get the great John Williams music, but we don't get to see him screaming on the inside, pounding to go, no, let me go back. I did not want this thing. Let me go back. So that's the only outside perspective side that I could showcase to that might be an interesting part of the conversation.
Well, he tried to communicate with his family. You know, he tried to tell his wife, Ronnie, I have something to show you. I have to show you this, right? And he tried to tell her and he tried to show her. And I feel like the movie is kind of illustrating that, you know, she's just not on the same page as him, you know, that they are just two different people. And I think, you know, Spielberg did have the courage to open himself up and put probably a lot of his experiences on the page and on the screen, you know, by showing you that family conflict. And I mean, in a way, this is a movie about a family breaking down, you know, that this is a husband and wife who cannot figure it out. You know, they can't get onto the same page and they just see life in two different ways. And there is actually no solution to that. The only solution is to break.
Or the only solution is to potentially go, it's not about you and the wife anymore. You've got 3 kids. Man up and don't blow up your entire fucking life because your life is not most important, which is what he's doing. My life, my mission is more important than you and the kids that we have. And that's the counter argument to that.
Yeah, and I think that's why Spielberg said he wouldn't make the movie the same as an older man. You know, after he had kids, he thought, I would never make a movie about a father abandoning his children like that, you know? But at the time, that's not the place he was at. That's not the story he's telling. I think he's telling the story more from the youthful point of view of feeling, the family breaking down, his own family breaking down. And now he's putting that onto the screen. So, I guess my point is just that I think that Roy his first thought was, Ronnie, I want you to see this, is that I think, so I think Roy is trying, but it's just not really working. She just doesn't see it the same way. And that's why when he meets the other woman has been imprinted the same as him. So the other woman understands him. She doesn't tell him, no, you're wrong. I don't get what you're talking about and you're crazy. And, it's very hard when you experience something like that and you try to tell people.
So do you think that's a metaphor for cheating? Because Spielberg with The Fabelmans is talking about his mom cheated on the father and went out there and went in that direction. Do you think he's trying to exercise that in a certain way?
Well, Roy does kiss the other woman at the end of the movie. So, I mean, yeah, there's those ideas are definitely in there. Um, But yeah, it's just I was just gonna say, it's very hard when something like this happens and then you are trying to communicate that to somebody and they don't understand you. I mean, people want to feel understood, right? I think that's one of the most basic kind of human desires, and it's part of why we make art. And in a way, I said to you that this movie is also sort of partly about being an artist, and like having this drive and this vision. It's like you see something that doesn't exist and you're trying to manifest it into reality, and the world is fighting against you and saying, why do you want to do that? I don't get that. I don't understand that, and the world is trying to push you down. And, it's very hard to be in an environment like that. And I feel like it's so important to have people who say, yes, I understand that. I feel that too. And you need a support system. And so, I think that he tries to communicate with his family, but Ronnie doesn't see the signs. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is Ronnie is a character where, her mind is a little more closed off and she doesn't really believe. She's not really a believer, and Roy is a believer. And that makes all the difference. And so he believes in the signs. He believes that, yes, this is important. This means something. And so he follows that thread, and I think that's, for me, that's what is so special about the movie. It's a movie that shows you the power of doing that. And I think as an artist and for somebody who, I've always thought of myself as somebody who hopefully keeps the childlike wonder alive inside of myself, and I really believe in that too, that you have to keep the magic, keep believing in the magic and follow the signs, follow your dream. It's really just it's almost like as basic as that. It's like whatever it is out there that you want to accomplish, you have to have such a single-minded vision and drive to do that, just like Roy.
To destroy your family.
You have to be willing. I mean, it's a question of like how much are you willing to sacrifice? Because, one thing about life is that nothing comes for free. You have to pay the price for everything, and it comes in one way or another. And Roy has to pay the price of abandoning his family. Yes, he gets to go on the spaceship. Yes, he gets to be quote unquote enlightened, and he gets to have this experience that you can't even comprehend, really, right? But he has to give up his entire family, his own children. He has to sacrifice them.
Yeah, but we're missing one key point there. We're saying it's a sacrifice for him. Imagine if he doesn't care, but imagine how that is going to hurt his wife and children. It's not just his sacrifice of going, oh, I'm letting them go. It's the pain that they're going to have to go through going, I was abandoned by my father. All 3 of those kids have been abandoned by their father, and the wife has now been abandoned by this other child. that she doesn't have to take care of anymore, thank God. But the hurt that's going to come to them is a thing that needs to be looked at. And I think that's why Spielberg later on looked at that. And you can look at it from the young 20-year-old eyes of going, I'm going with the spaceship. Oh, this is great. And I think that's why he had certain regrets later on. And he wanted to put in those extra scenes to showcase, hey, this guy's no longer your father. And that's why I like the addition that he decided to put in there of the scene where the kid is looking at his father going, you're not my dad anymore. You're no one who's going to be able to raise me. You're nothing. And that's why that kid is doing that with the door. And I think that's a slightly important thing to the later version that I just like as an addition to at least give a little comma to go, okay, Spielberg, if you feel better by putting that in there to get that point across, it's good because I think emotionally wise, 1977 100% works. Everything works about that. I'm in on that ride. Only after listening to Spielberg talk about it and have his things about it and this and that, and I go, okay, fine. Oh, I'll look at it from that perspective. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Emotionally, it works completely because I'm going with the aliens. Forget about it. But that's me as the viewer through Roy's eyes and through his obsession. And I think he felt some of the criticism of people going like, who would ever do something like that? Who would ever leave their family? And then he felt a little weird about that. Then he had kids, and then he thought about it years later and he goes, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But he came to that very quick because those scenes either were in the original or reshot in 1980. So they were there originally, which is just an interesting thought process to think about.
Yeah, they were in the script, and then he chose to cut it down,
Cut it, yeah.
try to streamline it. So, do you want to just mention anything about the scene where he's throwing all the stuff in the window or anything like that?
I find it so funny that he's throwing everything into the window. I love that the kid is mimicking the father. And I think that's a good representation of why the separation needs to happen because the mother's looking at this going, the kid's going like this, and he's just throwing things through the window, and the motherling, instincts is going, this is no longer a good example for what my children should be doing because the oldest son is staring on there going like, I see my father having a meltdown. This is horrific. This is not a good role model, and he's old enough to know it. But the young kids are still sitting there going like, oh wow, this is cool to throw bricks through the window. Hey dad, like this? Is this good? Like that is not a role model to be basing your life upon because he has a vision that they do not share and they cannot share because they have not seen what he has seen. And from what we're seeing with inside of the film, there is no way for them to actually see it. You can't explain what he's talking about. You can't explain I've seen aliens, which is why he's trying to take his family out there in the middle of the night to go look and go, hey, you have to see what I've seen. And then when they actually do go out there, Terry Garr goes, remember we used to come out to places like this and the whole thing that you've said. And she's trying to draw a different connection. And he's looking off into the sky going, yeah, but I'm on a different plane. I'm on a different atmosphere. I've been touched in a different way.
Yeah. And I think Spielberg making the movie is he knows that. He knows that you can't explain this to somebody and it's not the same. It's like you have to show it to them. And that's what he's doing by making the movie. He's showing it to you. Like you have to see it for yourself.
This means something.
This means something. But you have to have the faith to believe that, that those signs do mean something. And like I said, the courage to follow them.
And that's what I think is great about the Francois Truffaut character.
Yeah, we never even got to it. Yeah, go ahead.
When he's speaking to the general and he's going, look, all these people, they've all come here for different, I've interviewed them all separately and they've all come here for different reasons. They've all had the same vision. It's shared as this and that. And he's trying to convince. And he's going, this doesn't mean anything. This is no, it's all coincidence. They all saw it on the television. And I love that look that he gives when he looks out the window and he sees them escaping and he sees them running. He doesn't say anything.
And he smiles.
He smiles because he goes, yeah. He goes, this.
He's like, good for them.
He's like, good. And because he, in his head, is going, this means something.
Yeah.
They're here for a reason. that's beyond my recognition. They're going to get there. And then he has this whole moment with Roy at the end, when they have that look and that talk to each other when they're standing there in front of the thing. And it brings it full circle, where he's the guy who's been
Yeah.
going, I see the connections. This isn't all just coincidence. It does mean something.
I love the line where he says, "They belong here more than we."
I mean,
Yeah.
it's true. They've been selected, and we haven't.
I have a question for you before last question. Do you feel like you've ever had anything like this happen to you in the way of like, have you ever had some kind of sign that you feel like something that somebody might call a coincidence, but you thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe that does mean something. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Do you mean general, or do you mean like specifically aliens?
Have you had a close encounter, Greg?
When I was 5 years old, I thought I saw Santa Claus. I thought
Uh,
I saw, it might have been a shooting star, but it was on the night of December 24th, and I looked up through like a little skylight that we had, and like I was sleeping up. I was like Kevin McAllister. I was sleeping upstairs because the relatives were over, and I was in this little room, and there was a little skylight, and I was looking up, and I think I saw a shooting star. But I thought it was Santa Claus riding his sleigh, and maybe it could have been. I can't tell if it was or wasn't. I was 5 years old. I don't know. But I think I saw a little light go wee really quickly through the sky. And I came running down to all the other relatives and I said, I just saw Santa Claus. Because he needs to move that fast. You know how many houses he has to go to? There's a million amount of houses that he has to go to. So I came down there and they were, grown-ups going, oh, okay. Oh, that's nice. And they're being very nice, and how you'd be, oh, that's so good. That's so good of you. But I was like, my retinas saw a streak of light go through the sky, and I'm trying to come down here, and I'm Richard Dreyfuss. I'm Richard Dreyfuss in this movie, and I'm going, no, no, but I saw it. Like, you guys aren't getting it. I saw it. I saw him go. And they're not like, wow, you saw him go. They're like, oh, that's good. You saw him go. But I was being him, and I was going, no, but I did see him. So I wasn't, as a little kid, thinking, oh, there's, you know, uh, shooting stars. I was just going, I saw Santa. And that's, I guess, my close encounter.
mm. There's even a line in the movie where the government guy says during the press conference he's trying to dissuade everybody. And he actually says, "Well, I'd like to believe in UFOs too, but hell, what about mental telepathy or time travel or even Santa Claus?" And he kind of groups all that stuff together. And see, I think that's part of why you said that the government was like, "We don't want people to see this," because the movie shows you, we know it is real, and the government's telling people it's not real, but the audience knows it is real.
The audience and the
I love
perspective, yeah.
that.
And it's interesting to think of, what is the 1977 actual government thinking at the time? Are they thinking, oh, we know aliens are real, so we don't want to tell people? Or are they actually thinking like, well, we're just concerned about mass hysteria and public whatever? You know what I mean? Like, just control. Because there's communication, there's control, and those are the two kind of dualities that are going on within this movie.
Yeah. Have you ever wished upon a star?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pinocchio was the first movie that I went to as a kid. It was either Dumbo or Pinocchio, when I was very much younger. I haven't actually gone back to watch Pinocchio, but it was one of the first films that I saw as a kid that was very, that took me on a roller coaster.
Yeah. Look at how influential that story is, Pinocchio. Spielberg puts it here, Kubrick uses it later, and then Spielberg comes back around and directs AI. And yeah, yeah, I watched Pinocchio somewhat recently. It's great. We should put that on the list.
Definitely should.
Yeah.
You should pick that one.
Okay. I will pick it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, so we have
You,
that. We got it. You feel good? You got everything out. You got everything out.
yeah, I got everything
All
out.
right. There's a lot more to say. And the dead bird, and when they spray and you hear the spray sound of the dead bird, there's a lot to talk about.
Mm.
We'll have our after hours talk after this.
All right, sounds good.
All right, peace, brother.
I'm the break in the flicker, the cut in the edit, the blade through the credits, a frame they embedded. Light in the distance, persistence poetic. The dark is a prison, I brighten with aesthetic. No stunt doubles, I tumble through trap fights. The scripts in my soul, I control when my track spikes. Whisper in a reel, I reveal with the black light. The dark is a canvas that I carve with a flashlight. Call it a war cry, a cinematic spark. A puzzle in the shadows, a code of the art. It's Andrew and Greg and the legacy embarks. Our voices ignite and we light up the dark.
I'm almost upset that there's never been like a rap song remix of da na 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 na, because when it goes da 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 and it goes into that,
Yeah,
I think that is
yeah.
a fantastic orchestra. I love the fucking movie.
This means something.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie.
This is important.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie. Oh, I think this is one of the most influential movies when I was a kid. I was in the 80s and I saw it, and I was floored by the spectacle. Like, you have to imagine back to when, like, 1986, 1987, the special effects and the lens flares that are happening when the spaceships are approaching in each one of them. It was the most realistic thing I'd ever seen, and I would just rewatch it as a kid, and it would just be little Barry going out there and being pulled, and I watched it today, and I was floored again, as I always am when I watch it. I love the fucking movie.
This means something.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie.
This is important.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie. I was obsessed with those five tones as a kid. Like, with little Barry going, da-na-na. Like, as a kid, I was obsessed with those, and I couldn't even tell you why. They struck to me when I was watching this as I was little Barry watching this movie. I was watching this going, this makes sense. This means something. Like, when I was a kid watching this movie with no one else watching this movie, I was watching it over and over and over going, this means something. It speaks on such a deep level, and I attribute most of that to how into this story Spielberg was. I love the fucking movie.
This means something.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie.
This is important.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie. That ending of that movie floors me. I was a little kid, so I didn't understand, how does the thing come out from behind the big thing? And I would just watch it over and over and over and over. Everyone's, oh my God, what's happening? The first spider thing that comes out is one of the greatest looking, and the music, the way it goes, and then it goes into the da na 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 as he's coming out there, and it's the moment where it's going, are you going to be scared at this, or are you going to be accepting? And that's the whole dynamic. I love the fucking movie.
This means something.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie.
This is important.
Sit down, God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie. He transcended it to a piece of art, but he's going, this is art through a movie, and I want to show this to a mass audience, and I want you to love this thing, and I want you to be connected to it. He's a master of filmmaking. Thank you, Steven Spielberg, for being as cool as you were in 1977 to fight for what you wanted to get done. You got it done, and people are here 50 years later still talking about it, so you're the shit again. He made me want to make movies, and I understand the language of film primarily through his eyes, so I love the guy. I love the fucking movie.
This means something.
Sit down. God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie.
This is important.
Sit down. God is directing a film right now. Better pay attention. I love the fucking movie.